Chapter 3578. The dazzling void spirit ring stopped shining and became as dim as an ordinary iron ring. Mayan's deathly pale complexion gradually recovers. However, not only did she not feel at ease, but she was also burning with anxiety. The void spirit ring is the life shared between her and Diming-ju. Previously, there were several times when she was on the verge of danger. In the moments of imminent peril, it was always Diming-ju who gave her the divine essence, allowing her to get through the crisis. Just now, the void spirit ring had suddenly lit up and extracted soul essence from her body. This shows that Diming-ju is definitely in danger. But this kind of drawing was about to end. That's not because Diming-ju is out of danger, but because he forcibly severed the connection. Muyin took a deep breath and looked at the worried Elder Chong. I have some matters that I need to attend to. Could you please look after Xiaobao for me? Elder Chong hesitated for a moment. He actually wants to immediately return to the polar domain and tell Jun Shang about today's discovery. But right now, Little Master was the most important. If the young master couldn't endure the bloodline awakening, or if something happened to her, he would regret it for the rest of his life. Thinking of this, Elder Chong immediately nodded his head solemnly. Don't worry, Miss June. Even if I die, I will protect Little Master. I won't let anyone lay a finger on him. Mu Yin walked out of the room and gently rotated the void spirit ring on her finger. Tian Wu just said that Diming-ju is in the Yinwu continent. But how is she going to get there? Junior sister, do you want to experience the 10,000-wheel curse? Hearing the familiar voice, Mu Yin raises her head and meets Chu Moli's gentle and light smiling eyes. Third senior brother, in the courtyard, the scrolls that were thrown everywhere were burning, but they were not burned to ashes. In the center of the courtyard, the green stone ground had once again turned into rolling black water. It made people feel as if they had stepped into an endless hell once they stepped inside. Chu Moli's complexion is even uglier than Mu Yan's. There wasn't even a trace of blood on his thin lips, but his pitch-black eyes were shining with light. It was like the hope in the endless darkness. It was weak, but it never dissipated. Mu Yin takes a deep breath and slowly walks into the churning black water. In an instant, an indescribable feeling of suffocation assaulted him. Mu Yin couldn't describe that feeling. It was as if all the negative emotions in the world, hatred, disgust, sorrow, pain, numbness, and greed, were pouring in her body, almost bursting her. She could faintly hear Chu Moli's soft murmur. Li Weiran, I also want to fulfill your wish. But not everyone can bully the people of the Xiaoyao sect. Yinwu Continent, Fog Forest. Star Wolf cautiously follows behind Diming-ju. Looking at his slender and ramrod straight back, she felt uneasy. Jun Shang, where are we going? There's no expression on Diming-ju's face. He just coldly looks at him. Didn't I tell you to go back to the Xiaoxian continent first? How can this be? Star Wolf said anxiously. Knowing that someone is plotting against Lord, how can this subordinate not protect him? What's more, this subordinate's cultivation method is different from Han Ye's and Ing Mei's. Even Curse might not necessarily be able to do anything to this subordinate. Jun Shang, let this subordinate stay by your side to protect you. Diming-ju didn't say anything else. With an indifferent expression, he walked step by step through the fog forest. In fact, with his cultivation, even in the Yinwu continent, it would be as easy as turning over his hand if he wanted to shrink the earth to inches. But Diming-ju keeps walking step by step like that. Chapter 3579. It seems to be very fast, and his heart is full of anxiety. It also seems that his footsteps are heavy and dragging, and he only hopes that he will never reach his destination in this lifetime. A low and guilty voice vaguely rings in his mind. As a father, I didn't take good care of you. I never thought that I would marry such a ruthless and vicious woman. Not only did she almost kill my own son, but she also let Yin'er suffer such humiliation and pain. The speaker is Mu Yan's adoptive father, Shenicheng. With the help of the molding spirit pill that Mu Yan left behind, the majority of the Nether Flame army ascended to the Xiaoxian continent, including Mu Yan's brother, Shun Jinglin. But because the adoptive father, Shun Yiqing, was too old and had average talent, he ultimately failed to ascend and stayed in the Yinwu continent. In the past, Di Mingju was extremely repulsed by the identity of Xiao Bao's biological father. He was insanely jealous of the man whom Mu Yin deeply loved, jealous of the blood bond between him and Xiao Bao. So after Mu Yin agreed to be with him, Di Mingju made this matter, this person, a taboo. He didn't want to investigate Mu Yan's past, and he didn't allow anyone to mention it, even if Mu Yin had already promised to stay with him forever. Di Mingju's heart has always had a strong unease. Is the man who once had Mu Yin really dead? If he appeared one day, would Mu Yin abandon him and throw herself into his arms again? If that happened, he would go crazy. He would definitely not be able to stop himself from killing this man. He would even break Mu Yan's wings so that she could only stay by his side. Di Mingju couldn't imagine this day coming, so he simply deceived himself and forced himself to forget everything. However, it wasn't until today that he knew what he had missed. The hands hanging at his sides tightly clench into fists. Blood drips down from the gaps of his fingers. But he didn't notice it at all. It turns out that there has never been a man whom she deeply loved. There was only the young and helpless Mu Yin, who was schemed against, bullied, and pushed into an endless abyss. And he, because of jealousy and unease, buried his head like an ostrich, so that he didn't know anything. Yin'er told you that she deeply loved Xiao Bao's father? Shun Yiqing shows a surprised expression when he hears Di Mingju's question. How is that possible? Yin'er hates the man who humiliated her so much. At that time, Yin'er had yet to reach marriageable age. She was such a young child, yet she was forced to bear a premarital pregnancy. She had to bear the scorn and ridicule of the people around her. Although she loves Xiao Bao very much, she doesn't say a word about that man. Please believe me, Yin'er has never liked another man in her entire life. The only man she brought back to the Shun family and solemnly introduced to me in Jinglin is you. As for that bastard, which good girl would fall in love with him after being forced? Yin'er probably hated him to the bone all this time, but she didn't show it because of Xiao Bao. Not to mention that so many years had passed, that bastard might already be dead. Jun Shang, you don't have to take it to heart. In the future, please treat Yin'er well. You don't know that this child has suffered a lot. It's just that he's stubborn by nature and doesn't want anyone to know. Di Mingju closes his eyes. Every time he recalls Shun Yiqing's words, his heart aches as if it's struggling. But even so, he couldn't help but recall it over and over again, torturing himself. Chapter 3580. He never knew that the girl that he cherishes and cherishes, that he could not wait to give her the best of everything in the world, that she actually suffered such humiliation and pain in a place that he doesn't know. Jun Shang. Behind him, Xinglang suddenly discovers that there's blood flowing down his body. He screams in fright and rushes forward. Jun Shang, are you hurt? Shut up. Di Mingju's cold words make Xinglang instantly keep quiet out of fear. But the worry in his eyes is so thick that it can't be dispersed. Because there's something wrong with Jun Shang right now. His eyes are crimson, as if a storm is brewing in the depths of his eyes. The air pressure around him curls and tumbles, painstakingly suppressed. But if he's not careful, it will explode out, blowing up this world and even him into pieces. Xinglang wants to speak again. Suddenly, he finds a flash of light in front of him. The dense forest that was originally shrouded in thick fog suddenly disappeared. What appears in front of them is a small valley. There's nothing in this valley. It's probably because of the winter, but the ground is bare. Not even a blade of grass can be seen. Not far away from the two, at the end of this small valley, there's a cave. The moment he sees this cave, Xinglang feels that the air pressure around Jun Shang has changed again. Bone-chilling cold, a murderous aura. But there's also a hint of faintly discernible fear and pain. The coordinates that Li Weiran gave is here. Back then, Mu Yin mistakenly entered this cave. That's why Di Mingju suddenly closes his eyes, forcing himself not to imagine that scene. Otherwise, he won't be able to stop himself from destroying everything in front of him. After a long time, He takes a step forward, heading towards the cave. Xing Lang stares blankly and promptly clenches the ice around his waist, hurrying to catch up. Huh? He feels that he's stepping on something. Xing Lang's steps stop, and he subconsciously bends down to look. Only then does he discover that the thing that just stepped on his foot is half exposed. It turns out to be a bamboo tube. Someone must have accidentally left it here, right? Xing Lang isn't the least bit interested in the things left behind by the mortals of the Yanwu continent. He doesn't bother to take another look and gets up to catch up. However, he suddenly catches a flash of light from the corner of his eyes. This light is really coming from the bamboo tube. This is... Xing Lang raised his head and shouted, "Ruler, please come over and take a look." As he spoke, he quickly dug up the bamboo tube buried in the soil. Deming Ju stops and looks over. He promptly takes 3 steps and 2 steps, bringing the thing in front of Deming Ju. "Junshang, please take a look. Isn't this the symbol of my polar domain? Furthermore, there's a sealing barrier around this bamboo tube." Deming Ju takes the bamboo tube. Almost as soon as he touches it, his eyes sink. This was left behind by Pajun what? Star Wolf said in disbelief. Defeating armies came here before? What was he doing here? During this period of time, defeating armies had disappeared without a trace, but it didn't cause any reaction in the polar domain. This was because defeating armies had always been elusive. He can follow behind Deming Ju like a shadow for 10 years without showing himself. On top of that, his cultivation was extremely high, so no one could detect his presence. So much so that after such a long time, everyone still thinks that defeating armies is still hiding somewhere by Deming Ju's side, silently guarding. Only a very small number of people know that as early as a few months ago, defeating armies had asked Deming Ju for a leave to leave for a period of time. Chapter 3581. Only now did Deming Ju remember. Before defeating armies left, he did say that he would go to the Yanwu continent to investigate some things. So this was where defeating armies came from. But how did he know about this place? What are you here to investigate? Deming Ju's eyes droop as he looks at the bamboo tube in his hand. A dark blue rune mark immediately appeared on the bamboo tube. Seeing this symbol, Star Wolf's eyes suddenly widened. Even his breathing quickened. This is the Old Granny Seal. Why would defeating armies use the Old Granny Seal? Mr. Chong clearly said that the seal of the old matron was extremely rare and expensive. He would only leave it behind when he predicted that he would be in danger as his last words. The Old Granny Seal was a magic treasure. It was a one-time consumable magic treasure that had reached the level of a holy object. Even in the entire polar domain, only a few of Deming Ju's trusted subordinates and elders have them. As a matter of fact, with the Old Granny Seal, if one day the conditions to trigger the seal were met, the seal would be activated. This bamboo tube will automatically fly into Deming Ju's hand, even if they are separated by 2 worlds and space barriers. But before that, there was no way to break the seal. Even if it's Deming Ju, if he wants to forcibly break it open, he might also destroy the bamboo tube and its contents. What had happened to defeating armies that he had to use the Motherly Witch seal? Star Wolf panted slightly and said, "Defeating armies is definitely fine. The soul lamp he left in the polar domain is still bright. Junshang, you don't need to worry about him." Deming Ju puts away the bamboo tube, then turns his gaze towards the cave. That's right. Star Wolf's eyes brightened. Defeating armies left the item here. He might be inside. Junshang, please wait a moment. This subordinate will enter the cave to investigate. He found that defeating armies had left the Motherly Seal outside the cave. Star Wolf's heart leaped to his throat. Since even defeating armies was so serious about this, it meant that this place was extremely dangerous, even if this is only the lowest level Yanwu continent. And Star Wolf will absolutely not allow Deming Ju to easily take risks. Saying that, he doesn't wait for Deming Ju to react and already rushes towards the cave. However, just as he reached the entrance of the cave, he felt as if he had crashed into an invisible barrier. Because he was in too much of a hurry, the reaction force was too great. He even sat down on the ground. Fuck, what's this? Star Wolf cursed inwardly, shaking his dizzy head as he stood up. Barrier? Why is there a barrier here? Even Deming Ju can't help but frown. He stretched out his hand and touched the barrier. The divine power in his body slowly surged. In the Yinwu continent, everywhere is filled with the aura of desolation. Spiritual energy and immortal energy were almost completely unusable. Even if it's divine power that can move unhindered in the three realms and isn't restricted by the majority of the rules, it can't be used at will in the Yinwu continent. Otherwise, it would cause the heaven and earth's yuan qi to become turbulent, forming a spatial vortex and even causing the world to collapse. In the end, it would cause the people to be plunged into misery and suffering, and the heavenly Tao would punish them severely. Therefore, Deming Ju's movement of transferring divine power was extremely slow. As the divine power slowly seeped into the air, water-like ripples began to appear on the barrier outside the cave. The barrier emitted a star-like radiance. They scattered in all directions. For a moment, the previously gray, barren, and lifeless valley seemed to be filled with countless beautiful fireflies. It was so beautiful that it shook one's heart and soul. One would almost think that one was in a fairyland. Chapter 3582. Xinglang looks at this scene in amazement and admiration. He can't help but secretly say, Junshang is really amazing. He can still use his divine power as he pleases in the Yinwu continent. Facing such a strange enchantment, he's still able to remain calm. Just now, he's blowing a wave of bootlicking in his mind. Xinglang turns his head, only to find that Deming Ju's expression is very strange. He also raises his head to look at the light of the broken stars fluttering in the valley. From the initial grave and stern expression, his expression gradually turns into one of bewilderment and nostalgia. What's wrong with Junshang? Deming Ju blankly stares at the scene in front of him, his brain suddenly churning like a raging storm. There seems to be some dusty, firmly wrapped up memory. At this moment, he suddenly finds an opening to break through and rushes to rush out. He seems to have seen this kind of scene before. Don't cry. You don't cry anymore. Bin Jun will give you whatever you want. You said that there are no stars here. Bin Jun will fill the sky with starlight for you, as long as you don't leave. Yin, call me Yin. Wait for me. I'll come find you. The starlight sprinkles down from the sky. For a moment, it's like the Milky Way falling from the ninth heaven. It's magnificent, but no matter how beautiful it is, how can it be more beautiful than a young girl's bright and beautiful smile? Who is it? Who is it? Why is there such a memory in his mind? Junshang, be careful. In a trance, Deming Ju hears Xinglang's frightened scream. In the next moment, the invisible barrier outside the cave suddenly turns into densely packed runes. Each rune is a glaring blood red. Interweaving together, it's like they're building a red wall. And the divine power that Deming Ju injects is slowly flowing along with these runes. Finally, it converges at the heart of the array. Boom! There's a loud noise, and the earth shakes. In the distance, hundreds of beasts in the fog forest flee in all directions in fright, letting out terrified howls. Xinglang only cares about rushing over to protect Deming Ju, but he feels a scorching wave of air hitting his face. He's clearly already cultivated a complete immortal body. Under the scorching heat, he actually feels a severe pain on his skin. His hair makes a sizzling, burning sound, and in just a moment, the sparks spread to his scalp. Star Wolf was scared out of his wits. He wanted to escape. He wanted to circulate his immortal energy to resist, but it was already too late. At this moment, an ice-cold aura enveloped his entire body. Then, he felt the back of his neck being pulled back. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The tremors in the valley slowly disappeared. Everything returned to normal. Even the roars of the beasts in the dense fog forest disappeared in an instant. If it wasn't for the burning pain on his scalp, he wouldn't have thought of it. Starwolf almost thought that everything that had happened just now was just an illusion on his part. Is this still the freaking Yinwu continent? How could the Yinwu continent have such a frightening array boundary? If Junshang hadn't saved his life just now, he would have been roasted to death by these raging flames. Just as Xinglang breathes a sigh of relief, he lifts his head to see that Di Mingju's complexion is pale. His sword-like eyebrows were slightly knitted, as if he was suffering from some kind of pain. He asked nervously, "Junshang, what's wrong?" To be able to stand so well after being hit by the infinite holy curse. His Majesty truly deserves to be the most powerful person in the Xiaoxian continent. A laughing voice comes from the fog forest, making all the hairs on Starwolf's body almost stand on end. Rustle, rustle. Not far away, the trees in the forest gently sway, their branches and leaves rub against each other. Chapter 3583. Very quickly, more than a dozen black-clothed people noiselessly scuttle out of the fog forest, blocking Di Mingju and the Star Wolf at the entrance of the cave. The leader of these black-clothed men was the man who had just spoken. He was tall and slender, wearing a purple robe, and his black hair reached his waist. His appearance could be considered handsome, but when he laughed, he gave off a feeling of femininity. Who else could it be but Mu Luyun, the priest of Luyun of the Netherworld? Mu Luyun's gaze falls on Di Mingju. An uncontrollable fear and wariness flashed in his eyes. Then he laughed unscrupulously. "Emperor, I really didn't expect this. We meet again so soon." Di Mingju says indifferently, "What about Li Weiran? Who knows?" A look of disdain appeared on Mu Luyun's face. After so many years, this brat still can't get rid of his old habits of sneaking around and scheming in the dark. Selfish, greedy, insidious, heartless. If not for the fact that he is proficient in incantations and has some value to us, there is no way he would be qualified to stay in our organization. However, there's nothing we can do about it. As the saying goes, dragons give birth to dragons, and phoenixes give birth to phoenixes. Someone like Di Beixian, who looks dignified on the surface but is actually a treacherous and shameless person, can only have such a son. Star Wolf was enraged. "Shut up. If you dare to spout nonsense again, I'll pull out your tongue." "I'm babbling nonsense?" Mu Luyun couldn't help but laugh out loud. "Emperor, why don't you tell him what your relationship with Li Weiran is? What is his relationship with Di Beixian?" Back then, Di Beixian had his way with women everywhere in the three realms. That was something the entire cultivation continent knew. It was just that those children all had average talent and would die of old age before they reached 100 years of age. In the end, only that little bastard Li Weiran survived. Speaking of which, he should also be the successor of the polar domain. Mu Luyun looks at Di Mingju with a smile that isn't a smile. "Di Jun, no matter what, that little bastard is still your half-brother from a different mother. Shouldn't you take him back and give him back what he deserves?" Star Wolf was enraged. "Bullshit. Who is Li Weiran? Do you think you're fit to call me brother?" Mu Luyun didn't even look at Star Wolf. He only looks at Di Mingju with a mocking gaze. "I really asked a stupid question." The Archking was also Di Beixian's son, and he was also selfish, shameless, vicious, and heartless. He only cared about himself and the polar domain, but he couldn't see the suffering of the people of the world. How could the Emperor bear to spit out the power that is already in his hands and return it to his brother? Star Wolf was so angry that his eyes turned red. The anger in his chest was about to explode. This group of bastards, how dare they slander Junshang like this? In the immortal cultivation continent, the nightmare ghosts wreaked havoc. When was it not the Lord who risked his life to save tens of thousands of lives? How many things had he done for the common people? How many risks did he take? How many times had he been injured? However, he never boasted about his merits and achievements. But just because Junshang is low-key, these people can wantonly slander and insult Junshang? Star Wolf's chest heaved violently. They only hate that they don't have Han Ye's eloquence and Miss June's poisonous tongue, able to make them speechless. But for him to swallow this insult and humiliation, he absolutely can't do it. Thus, Star Wolf didn't say anything. He bellowed and unsheathed his long blade. Chapter 3584. He recklessly hacked at Mu Luyun. Mu Luyun's eyes were filled with mockery. A boorish fellow like Star Wolf, he did not place him in his eyes at all. With a wave of his hand, a black, stick-like magic treasure appeared in his hand. From the Xiaoxin continent to the Yinwu continent, you can't carry any immortal tools other than your natal magic weapons. Even if it was a natal magic treasure, it would not be able to exert even 10% of its power in this desolate continent. However, the thin black rod that Mu Luyun took out actually emitted strands of black qi that wrapped around the Star Wolf. Dark Prison Zen, Infernal Flame. Mu Luyun looked at the Star Wolf, who was bound by the black gas and unable to move for a moment. His lips curled into a mocking smile. I'll let you have a taste of the feeling of having your soul destroyed by the seamless fire. As soon as he finished speaking, a red light shone from the tip of the thin black stick, the Dark Hell Zen. But at this moment, Star Wolf's originally immobile hand suddenly lifted up. Then, a powerful energy burst out from the long saber and slashed at the Dark Hell Zen. Crack, crack, crack. The red light on the Dark Hell Zen instantly disappeared. The entire stick was actually frozen solid. Mu Luyun's expression changed drastically, and he rolled to the side without thinking. At the critical moment, he dodged Star Wolf's fatal attack. However, there was a wound on his left shoulder, so deep that the bone could be seen. As the blood flowed out, it condensed into red ice crystals. Even the Dark Hell Zen in his hand fell to the ground. It floats in midair and falls into Di Mingju's hand. Mu Luyun clutches his shoulder, looking at Di Mingju in horror. Her mind once again recalled the despair and fear she felt when she was crushed by this man. You've already been hit by the infinite holy curse, yet you still have such strength. Yes, the Star Wolf was able to injure him just now. It's not that he got rid of the control of the Hell of Darkness Zen, but that Di Mingju was manipulating his every move from behind the scenes. This man didn't even need to do it himself. Mu Luyun was already powerless to resist. If he hadn't been hit by the infinite holy curse just now, they wouldn't even be qualified to be crushed to death by him like ants. Star Wolf cuts a sorry figure as he returns to Di Mingju's side. He almost can't raise his head to look at the Junshang that he revered. He's really too useless. Not only can he not protect Junshang at all, but he also always makes Junshang protect him. Among the 4 Imperial Guard commanders, he was the most useless. His talent was average, his brain wasn't good, and his mouth wasn't sharp either. Apart from causing trouble for Junshang, there's no use. The rims of Star Wolf's eyes were slightly moist, and his entire person had sunk into the depression of self-doubt. However, at this moment, a thin black stick was thrown into his arms. Di Mingju's cold and slightly impatient voice is heard. Your natal magic weapon doesn't suit you. I have already erased the divine soul imprint on the Dark Hell Zen. Can you refine this from now on? Star Wolf scrambles to take it, then dumbly stares at Di Mingju. Junshang snatched the Dark Prison Zen and gave it to him. He even purposely erased the divine soul imprint on it. Does Junshang not hate him and still have high hopes for him? At this moment, Xinglang's tears almost flowed out. I only feel that being able to follow Junshang in this life is really the happiest thing. At the side, Mu Luyun is also so angry that he wants to cry. The Dark Hell Zen isn't an ordinary magic weapon. It can't correspond to the various magic weapons of the Xiaoxin continent. Chapter 3585. However, its value was incomparable to a normal, holy item. He communicated with the Yin and Yang domains, lingering between the darkness curse and the light holy light. It was one of the few weapons in the world that was suitable for Mu Luyun. After obtaining the Dark Hell Zen from his master, Mu Luyun had refined it for over 100 years before finally succeeding. Now that Deming Ju has easily and skillfully erased his soul imprint, it's tantamount to his 100 years of hard work being in vain. How could he not be angry? Mu Liyun slowly stood up, his eyes emitting intense, killing intent. Generals, listen up. Today, no matter what price we have to pay, we must behead the polar domain's sovereign here. Deming Ju is dead. The polar domain has collapsed. From now on, the Xiaoxin continent is our world. No one will be able to stop us from lighting up every corner of the three realms. Now listen to my command. Release the poltergeist ghosts. The men in black in the valley answered Gao He in unison. Yes, we will obey the priest's orders. What? Star Wolf's expression changed drastically. What did he just hear? Venomous ghosts. In the next moment, every black-robed man took out a black porcelain bottle. Then, he bit the tip of his finger and dripped his blood into the bottle. Drops of blood dripped into the porcelain bottle. The faces of the black-robed men grew paler and paler, and their bodies became thinner and thinner. It was as if his flesh and blood were being sucked dry bit by bit. But even so, there was not a trace of fear or unwillingness on their faces. On the contrary, all of their eyes shone brilliantly, crazily, and persistently, as if they were doing an incomparably sacred thing. Bang! After dripping the last drop of blood, the black-clothed man became emaciated, like a zombie wrapped in human skin on the outside of the skeleton. He couldn't hold on any longer and fell straight down, losing all signs of life. At the moment of his death, his sunken eyes were wide open, and the corners of his cracked lips curved into a beautiful and yearning smile. It looked extremely creepy and eerie. The black porcelain bottle in his hand began to vibrate violently. Then ferocious-looking poltergeist ghosts crawled out of the porcelain vases. They bared their fangs and let out terrifying sounds as they began to search for fresh and delicious prey. One by one, the men in black fell to the ground as their flesh and blood were sucked dry. More and more venomous ghosts appeared in the valley. In the blink of an eye, this small area was filled to the brim. Star Wolf had already seen the scene of nightmare ghosts wreaking havoc, but right now, he only felt his scalp go numb, because the valley was too small. Furthermore, the entrance to the cave was blocked by a barrier. He and Junshang simply have no way to escape. The only thing worth rejoicing about was that these poltergeist ghosts were of very low levels, only at the first or second level. In front of the dense fog forest, Mu Yuyun's figure slowly became transparent. The smile at the corner of his mouth was filled with ridicule and mockery. Emperor, all of you shall stay in this valley and experience the pain and despair of being slowly eaten and devoured by the poltergeist ghosts. To be able to die so easily in the mouths of the nightmare ghosts is truly a bargain for you. If possible, I really want you to personally taste the pain we suffer back then. Let's not meet again, my esteemed Emperor Piak. Dijun raised his hand. A black light flew out from his palm and lashed at Mu Luyun, who was about to disappear like a whip. A dash! Mu Luyun let out a blood-curdling scream and fell heavily to the ground. Chapter 35-86. The black whip doesn't seem to feel carefree enough. It slaps Mu Luyun's body a few times. His flesh is lacerated, and he howls miserably again and again. This kind of pain can't be endured by willpower. Mu Luyun considers himself a persevering person, but right now, he can't control his instinctive moans and screams. After the black whip has lashed Mu Luyun enough, it flies high into the sky, gently shaking. The next moment, the whip turns into a black longsword. It flies towards the poltergeist ghosts in the valley. Crackle! Blue sparks of lightning explode in every corner of the valley from time to time. Every time the lightning flashes, a poltergeist head falls to the ground. Originally, poltergeist ghosts won't necessarily die, even if their heads are cut off. However, the poltergeist ghosts that are cut by the black longsword will burn with a blue flame. This flame burns very quickly. In just a moment, the huge poltergeist ghost turns into ashes, falling into the mud. Starwolf is simply dumbfounded, stars in his eyes. He looks at Diming-ju as if he's looking at a supreme god. Mu Luyun, who has finally recovered from the pain, looks at this scene with an ashen face, not daring to believe it. How is this possible? How can this be? You've clearly been hit by the infinite holy curse. It should be difficult for you to even stand. How can you retain so much divine power? The last poltergeist ghost is burned to nothing by the blue flame. The black longsword flies back into Diming-ju's hand, slowly entering his body. Diming-ju looks at Mu Luyun, sneering, who said that Ben-jun was hit by the infinite holy curse. I clearly saw the infinite holy curse being triggered, and your body was also branded with the power of the curse. Mu Luyun's voice stops abruptly. He sees Diming-ju take out a piece of paper from his bosom, gently pinching it between his fingers, looking pensive. This piece of paper is actually a very small painting. The painting is of a ferocious ghost, but above the ghost, there are beautiful and colorful butterflies fluttering. Under their feet, there are blooming flowers. Because of the existence of butterflies and flowers, the originally ugly ghost seems to be a bit more gentle and kind. It was supposed to be a very ordinary painting. Mu Luyun was stunned when he saw it, but he quickly realized something. His eyes widened as he screamed, "This is the infinite lesser light mantra? How is this possible? How could you possibly have the boundless lesser light mantra?" So that was how it was. So that's how it is. Only the immeasurable lesser radiance mantra and the great radiance mantra could counteract the effects of the immeasurable holy mantra. No wonder Diming-ju was clearly hit by the infinite holy curse, but wasn't injured at all. But even Li Wei-ran didn't know how to use the innumerable little light curse. So how did Diming-ju know? Where did you get this painting? Why is there still someone in this world who can use the infinite lesser light mantra? In fact, this question is also hovering in Diming-ju's mind. Regarding the curse, almost everyone in the Xioshan continent kept it secret, just like the Shin musician was a taboo for everyone. Diming-ju also wants to know why Mayan's third senior brother, Chu Moli, already knew that Li Weiran and the others would use the infinite holy curse to deal with him. He even thoughtfully prepared the immeasurable lesser light incantation for him. Chu Moli, just who is he? But now isn't the time to look into this. Diming-ju puts away the paper and slowly walks towards Mu Luyun. Where is Li Weiran? Chapter 3587. Mu Luyun is in a trance right now. He shakes his head in horror, shouting that it's impossible. Then he laughs hysterically, as if he's gone mad. He raises his head to look at Diming-ju. Does Di-jun want to know what Li Weiran's plan is? Diming-ju looks down at him, not speaking. Actually, I also want to know. Mu Luyun reveals a strange smile. His face has wounds from the whip, badly mangled. With this smile, the wounds split open, making him look even more sinister and terrifying. I didn't like Li Weiran before, and I didn't like him. But this time, everything is as he predicted. Listening to the orders of Di Beishuan's illegitimate son makes me feel unspeakably disgusted. But in order to thoroughly kill you, Di-jun, today, I'm willing to listen to him once. Mu Luyun's neck is raised high, revealing his slender, white neck stained with blood. Her voice, which was already somewhat feminine, suddenly became louder, like the ear-piercing sound effect of a boiling kettle. Li Weiran, I will use my life in exchange for the collapse of the polar domain, in exchange for my lord's unparalleled hegemony. If you dare deceive me, even if I descend to the 18th level of hell, I will definitely come back to take your life. Diming-ju's pupils suddenly contract. He sees Mu Luyun's body suddenly fly out like a cannonball. His hands and feet have long been dislocated and fractured from the whip strikes just now. He can't even stand up. So the way he flies out right now is extremely strange. His head is raised high. His hands and feet hang limply. The direction of his flight isn't towards Diming-ju or Starwolf. Instead, it's towards the cave covered by the barrier. Bang! Mu Luyun hits the barrier with his head raised. His neck breaks in half on the spot. Blood splatters out. His eyes are wide open, and he slowly slides down the barrier in this twisted position. His cracked lips softly murmur, "Master, Lian can no longer follow you. May you live for 10,000 autumns and 10,000 generations. The holy light is eternal." Mu Luyun falls to the ground and dies. A nostalgic and gentle smile condenses on his mangled face and finally disappears along with the flowing blood. Star Wolf is a bit confused by this turn of events. What is this guy doing? Do you want to die? But Diming Ju's complexion greatly changes. He grabs the Star Wolf and directly throws him into the dense fog forest. But he himself did not leave. That was because he knew that when Mu Luyun's blood splashed onto the barrier, he was already unable to leave. The transparent barrier began to tremble violently. From the ground, black tentacles stretch out one after another, wrapping around Diming Ju's feet. This was clearly the first time he had seen this scene, but it was so familiar. It was as if he had seen such a scene many, many years ago. The moment he's entangled by these tentacles, Diming Ju feels the strength in his body being sucked clean. His mind also became muddled and heavy. He was in a trance, not knowing what day it was and where he was. Diming Ju, are you all right? Don't scare me. Diming Ju raises his head with difficulty. What he sees is a peerlessly beautiful face and peach blossom eyes brimming with concern and worry. Yin Yin. The moment he sees the girl, Diming Ju feels as if his heart, which has always been tormented in a pot of oil, has fallen back to earth, becoming soft and tranquil. But very quickly, Diming Ju responds, "Why did you come to the Yinwu continent? It's so dangerous here. Who let you come? Nonsense." Chapter 35-88. What Yinwu continent? The girl in front of him blinks, a puzzled look on her face. Diming Ju, have you become muddled from sleep? Saying so, her small jade-like hand caresses Diming Ju's forehead. You don't have a fever. Why are you talking nonsense? Suddenly, the young girl's eyes narrowed, revealing a dangerous expression. Don't tell me you don't want to marry me. So you're pretending to be sick on the eve of our wedding? Get married? Diming Ju repeats these two words in a daze. Then, his blurry vision gradually became clear. Everything around him came into view. This is Polar Domain's soaring sky hall? How could this be? He was clearly in the Yinwu continent just now. Suddenly, Diming Ju's train of thought stagnates. Was he really in the Yinwu continent before? But why would he go to the Yinwu continent? Diming Ju. Mayan couldn't help but push him. What's wrong with you? You've been weird all day today. Don't tell me it's like what Xie said. Premarital phobia? She snorted coldly. If you really don't want to, then cancel tomorrow's wedding. I'll leave the Polar Domain immediately. No. Diming Ju instinctively lets out a low shout, reaching out to pull the person into his embrace. You're not allowed to go anywhere other than by Ben Jun's side. The girl in his arms smiled, her brows relaxed, and she looked as beautiful as the morning sun. It makes Diming Ju's heart feel like it's soaked in soft honey water, sweet and warm. Sweeping his gaze around, Diming Ju discovers that the layout of High Sky Hall is completely different from before. Festive red silk was hung everywhere, and double happiness was pasted on the door. Extending his divine sense, he could see that the entire Polar Domain was already decorated with lanterns and colored banners, and it was extraordinarily lively. Everyone's faces were brimming with smiles as they waited for their ruler to marry his beloved divine empress. Mu Yin happily left to try on her wedding clothes. The smile on Diming Ju's face slowly dissipates, turning into absent-mindedness and perplexity. Was he really going to marry Mayan? But why did it all feel like a dream? He was still there earlier. Wait a minute, what was he doing just now? Why couldn't he remember anything? Soon, the next day arrived. The sky was clear and the wind was gentle. Diming Ju rarely changes out of his black brocade robe and puts on a fiery red bridegroom outfit. Everything around him seemed to be speeding up. In a hazy state of unease, Diming Ju arrives at the center of the auditorium. In front of him was a woman wearing a phoenix coronet and a red cape. She was extremely beautiful and captivating. Ming-ju can barely hear the sound of Elder Chong reciting the prayer. He stared unblinkingly at the woman in front of him. Amidst the joyous atmosphere, an unspeakable uneasiness and pain flowed through his heart. Would Mayan really belong to him from now on and become his wife? Why did it feel so unreal when the beautiful woman was right in front of him and the blessing and oath was ringing in his ears? Jun Mayan, Ming-ju, you can't get married? At this moment, a man's voice came from outside the Lingxiao Hall. Everyone turned to look at the door. A handsome young man in a snow-white robe was holding the hand of a little baby carved from jade as he slowly walked into the hall. Li Weiran, Han He, angrily rebuked. Today is my polar domain's sovereign emperor's wedding day. Who'll let you come in and make trouble? Someone come, hurry up and drive him out. The white-clothed young man had a pair of ice blue eyes that were almost exactly the same as Ming-ju's. Chapter 3589. Who else could it be other than Li Weiran? The child he was holding had an extremely handsome appearance. His skin was like jade, and he looked like a fairy. What was most surprising was that his pupils were also ice blue. Her appearance is 60 to 70% similar to Jun Mayan's. Little treasure. The moment she saw the child, Mu Yin immediately tore off the phoenix coronet and rushed over, holding him in her arms. Xiao Bao, where have you been? Don't you know that your mother was very worried about you? Xiao Bao struggled out of Mu Yin's embrace and reached out to grab Li Weiran's hand. In a childish voice, he said, Xiao Bao is with Daddy. Mother, Father, and I have come to pick you up. Mu Yan's face is full of bewilderment. She promptly pulls Xiao Bao to Ming-ju's side. Xiao Bao, this is your father. No. Xiao Bao bit her lip and said sadly but firmly, I already know that he is not related to me by blood. He is not my biological father. Xiao Bao wants to be with mother and father. The three of us will never be separated for the rest of our lives. Li Weiran also walked up and grabbed Mu Yin's hand. He said hoarsely, Mu Yin, I let you down in the past. I didn't look for you all these years and caused you to suffer a lot. But now I already know that Xiao Bao is my child, and I've never liked another woman as much as I like you. Can you give me a chance to make up for my past mistakes and let me take care of you and your mother in the future? Mu Yan's face revealed a struggling expression. Li Weiran continued, that year in the cave, we were together by a free combination of factors. But all these years, I've never forgotten you. Don't you miss that one night of ecstasy? I don't believe that you don't have any feelings for your first man. What's more, Xiao Bao is our child in the end, and Ming-ju and I have an irreconcilable enmity. Can you guarantee that he will love Xiao Bao as his own flesh and blood forever, even if he could do it? What about the others from the polar domain? Can they turn a blind eye to Xiao Bao's past and truly support him as the successor of the polar domain? These words make Ming-ju's heart suddenly ache. He subconsciously reached out and grabbed Mu Yin's hand, murmuring in a low voice, Mu Yin, don't go, don't leave me. Li Weiran also grabbed Mu Yin's other hand. Mu Yin, even if it's for Xiao Bao, you will still be with me, right? Because you know very well that only by marrying me can you give Lil Bao a true and complete family. I will also use the rest of my life to treat you well, spoil you, love you, let you forget Ming-ju, and truly become my wife. Mu Yin looked down at the boy's eyes, which were filled with anticipation and anxiety. She finally gritted her teeth and shook off Ming-ju's hand. Resolutely, she stood beside Li Weiran, tears falling from her eyes. I'm sorry, Ming-ju. I want to give little Bao a complete family. Plus, Li Weiran is my first man and the father of my child. I love you, but I can't choose you. After saying that, she grabbed Li Weiran and Xiao Bao's hand without any reluctance to leave, turned around and left. His heart felt like it was being ruthlessly cut by a blunt knife. It was as if he was tied up by thorns and strangled tightly. It was so painful that he could hardly breathe. Ming-ju had already realized that something was wrong. This was a dream. Chapter 3590. The Mu Yin and Xiao Bao, in this dream, no matter how similar they pretend to be, are still different from the women he loves. He already knew. He lingered in this dream because he still couldn't find a way to free himself. But even if he already knew, seeing Mu Yin take Li Weiran's hand and leave, it still makes his heart ache, as if it's going to break apart. It's like the fear hidden in the bottom of his heart has been magnified countless times in an instant. It's telling him that no matter how much he struggles, he can't free himself. Could it be that he really can't keep Mu Yin? No, no one can take Mu Yin away from him. He can ignore everything in the world, but Mu Yin is his only obsession in this life. Energy that can destroy the heavens and exterminate the earth overflows from his body. Around his trembling body, there's a tumultuous gale and huge waves. All the illusions around him begin to shatter, annihilated in the vortex. Deming Ju doesn't notice that a black mark has appeared on his forehead. This mark is very strange. It seems to be the opposite of the leaf fire bloodline. It also seems to be a seal with complicated runes, firmly locking something. And now, under the impact of Deming Ju's intense emotions, the seal began to wobble and emit a flickering light. It seems like it could break at any time. But at this moment, a black painting shoots in from the outside, like lightning. As Deming Ju's emotions surge, it instantly enters his body. Yinwu Continent, a nameless valley. Li Weiran looks at the deathly pale man in front of him, the corners of his mouth curling up in ridicule. He slowly walks along the invisible barrier in front of the cave. As he walks, his slender fingers gently draw across the barrier. Some strange runes immediately appear in the air. Li Weiran chuckles. I also inadvertently discover that there's such an interesting place in the Yinwu continent, Cursed Land. Moreover, it's a cursed land that's specifically aimed at the inheritors of the leaf fire bloodline. I don't know who left it here, but it's like it's prepared for the people of the Polar Domain's imperial family, a tomb. If there wasn't this cursed land as an aid, and if that idiot Mu Luyun sacrificed his life to activate the dark curse of the cursed land, it really wouldn't be that easy for me to kill you today. Saying so, he raises his eyes to look at Deming Ju. His ice-blue eyes were bottomless, but the smile on his face became more and more unbridled. Does the curse of 1,000 cuts feel good? I have been preparing this incantation talisman for you for over 100 years. Deming Ju's current appearance is truly indescribably distressed. Every inch of skin on his body was cracking open and healing quickly. It was like death by 1,000 cuts over and over again. And the same death by 1,000 cuts was still happening in his internal organs. This kind of pain was definitely not something an ordinary person could endure. But Deming Ju's complexion is deathly pale. His expression doesn't even show any abnormalities. The way he looked at Li Weiran was still so condescending. It was as if he was looking at a piece of trash that he didn't even care about. He didn't even want to talk to him. The ethereal spirit ring on the ring finger of his left hand flashed, but it was quickly sealed by Deming Ju and didn't show the slightest abnormality in the meantime. But in reality, the curse of 1,000 cuts in his body was wreaking havoc because it lacked the divine power to resist and suppress it. Li Weiran was obviously angered by his attitude. Chapter 3591. But the angrier he got, the brighter the smile on his face. A pair of ice-blue pupils are faintly tinged with a bit of scarlet. Deming Ju, do you know what your mother, Bai Shengwei, did to me back then? Today, I will return all the pain he inflicted on me back then to you. Deming Ju's complexion suddenly sinks. No matter how Mu Luyun insulted Di Beixian, he acted as if nothing had happened. It was as if Di Beixian wasn't his father at all, but an insignificant stranger. But now, Li Weiran mentioned Bai Shengwei. The killing intent in Deming Ju's eyes spreads like ice all of a sudden. The black longsword flew out from his palm and slashed down viciously at Li Weiran. However, he was too weak now. Even this life-bond sword seemed to have lost its support and became extremely weak. Li Weiran easily dodged the attack, and the smile on his face became even wider. Why did you get angry when I'm mentioned by Shenwei? Did I say something wrong? Back then, pausing for a moment, Li Weiron's face revealed a trace of malevolent hatred. Li Qianqian is indeed a mistress and is not worthy of sympathy. But what did I do wrong as a child? Just because they discovered that I might awaken my Li Fire bloodline and were afraid that I would threaten your status as the successor of the polar domain, they ordered people to cripple my Danteon spirit root and sold me to the dirtiest place in the world. Ha ha! This is the polar domain divine queen that everyone praises as virtuous and kind-hearted? Bah! She's even more disgusting and evil than Di Beixian. She should be cursed by everyone and die a horrible death. Shut up! Di Mingju shouted, interrupting Li Weiron's words. There was a hint of suspicion in his eyes. Then, he said in a deep voice, Mother would never do such things. Di Mingju has always known that Di Beixian is a playboy by nature and has many lovers and illegitimate children outside. Some of these lovers followed him willingly. Some were even deceived by him and had no choice but to give themselves to him. And Di Mingju's mother, Bai Shenwei, has never loved Di Beixian. Their marriage was a political marriage, but it was also a result of Di Beixian's passionate pursuit of the Bai family. Bai Shenwei had no choice but to marry into the polar domain imperial dynasty for the Bai family. However, she had never truly loved Di Beixian. Therefore, she had never asked about what he had done outside and only felt disgusted. She puts all her thoughts on nurturing and loving Di Mingju. However, an accident several hundred years ago had caused Bai Shenwei to be heavily injured. For many years after that, Bai Shenwei was always bedridden. She could no longer shield her only child from the wind and rain. During that period of time, Di Mingju suffered a lot and quickly grew into a king who could stand shoulder to shoulder with Di Beixian. However, just when he thought that he could take good care of Bai Shenwei, Bai Shenwei suddenly passed away. Di Beixian also disappeared without a trace. Even the soul lamp he left in the polar domain was extinguished. Everyone said that Di Beixian was dead. The entire polar domain's imperial family only has Di Mingju, who has just stepped into the realm of the immortal king. At that time, everyone thought that the polar domain would decline and be unable to recover from this setback, withdrawing from the tripartite status of the nether realm and the demon race. But who could have known that Di Mingju's strength would advance to the peak of venerable immortal in just a few short years, pushing the polar domain all the way to the peak? It could even suppress the nether realm and the demon race. Now, he had become the only immortal emperor in the Xiaoxin continent. Chapter 3592. But only Di Mingju knew how much guilt and longing he felt. Guilt that he couldn't become stronger faster and protect his mother. That way, his mother wouldn't have died. In Di Mingju's impression, Bai Shenwei was an almost perfect woman. Kind, gentle, patient, and had her own determination and perseverance. So no matter what, he wouldn't believe that Bai Shenwei would treat Li Weiran like that. But Li Weiran's expression when he said these words, and his aura fluctuated intensely. All of these meant that what he said was true. Di Mingju's words made Li Weiran's eyes redden even more, and the smile on his face became even more venomous and hateful. Di Mingju, did you think that I schemed step by step, plotted for hundreds of years, and put you in this situation of death, just to listen to your explanation? Or to make you believe me? No, I just wanted Bai Shenwei, who was underground, to see with her own eyes what kind of miserable ending the son she nurtured with so much effort would fall into. As soon as he finished speaking, Li Weiran formed a seal with both hands. In a split second, the 1,000 cuts curse that had been implanted in Di Mingju's body began to wreak havoc. Di Mingju, who had been holding back all this time, finally couldn't help but let out a grunt. Fresh blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. A burnt piece of paper fell from his arms, turning into ash and disappearing. Li Weiran looked at the paper and sneered. Did you think that I would completely believe Chu Mo Li and not take any precautions? No, in this world, I won't believe anyone, I only believe in myself. Mingju, you won't be able to escape today. Mingju's entire body leaned against the invisible barrier of the cave, tottering, almost unable to stand. His clothes were completely soaked in blood from the wounds that had opened up all over his body. But even in such a miserable and hopeless situation, Mingju's expression was still cold and indifferent. His long eyelashes hung down, covering the dark light in his eyes. At this time, a melodious zither sound came from the fog forest. Mingju and Li Weiron's pupils shrank at almost the same time, and they abruptly turned their heads to look. Then, they saw a sword whistling through the forest. It directly struck Li Weiron's hand. Bang! The violent impact caused Li Weiron's entire body to fly several meters away. His hand was also cut by the sharp blade, and blood splattered everywhere. For a moment, Li Weiron felt as though the wound was on his heart. The pain seeped into his heart and lungs, causing the blood in his body to turn cold bit by bit. A figure rushes out of the forest, and in the blink of an eye, it's already at Mingju's side. Mu Yin supports the man's teetering body, feeling the cold and sticky touch of his body. His heart contracted fiercely, and the hand that was taking his pulse couldn't help but tremble. Mingju, what's going on? Why did you come to the Yinwu continent and even make yourself look like this? Although she said those words with resentment, the worry and heartache in the girl's eyes almost overflowed. Mingju feels as if he stepped into a glacier in a dream. His frozen and numb heart slowly warms up. Unknowingly, his eyes were tainted with a bone-piercing gentleness. In this world, he would only show his gentleness to this woman in front of him. But it was not over yet. He had not gotten the answer he wanted. Mingju grabbed Mayan's wrist with a backhand, his ice-cold fingers firmly clasping her like a pair of iron pincers. Chapter 3593. Yin Yin, don't you find this place familiar? Mayan stares blankly and looks around. In an instant, he felt a buzzing in his head, and everything in the world seemed to have disappeared. All that was left was the cave in front of her that had once terrified her, confused her, and left her in a trance. She thought that she had lived 2 lives. So many years had passed, and she had long forgotten everything. But at this moment, he realized that some things were like soul imprints. As long as it happened, it would never be forgotten. Mayan's line of sight falls on Mingju's face. Gritting her teeth, she enunciates each word. Why are you here? How'd you know about this place? Mingju looks at her deathly pale complexion in a split second and only feels a burst of pain in his heart. He quickly reached out and pulled her into his embrace. Yin Yin, I don't care about your past, and I don't care who Xiao Bao's biological father is. He didn't finish his sentence. But Mu Yin understood. Mingju has always been brooding over Xiao Bao's biological father. This time, Li Weiron must have said something to him. This caused him to become hot-headed and step into Li Weiron's trap in the Yinwu continent. For Mu Yin, everything that happened back then was like a wound that had already scabbed over. Of course, she didn't want anyone to investigate. That was tantamount to tearing open a bloody wound, especially when the one who tore it apart was Mingju. In this world, what Mayan doesn't want the most is for Mingju to know about this past. She wants to get angry, but looking at Mingju's miserable appearance, she only feels distressed. You hurt yourself so badly just for this. Are you an idiot? Mu Yin takes out the Tian Emochin and starts playing. The sound of the zither rises, and pure energy envelopes Mingju, stopping the thousands of cuts on his body for a moment. But a curse was a curse after all. It's not something that the healing skills of today's Shun musicians can match. Therefore, the art's essence yellow skill falls on Mingju. His wounds only healed for a moment before they burst open again. Blood splatters everywhere. The pain of his body being dismembered inch by inch makes Mingju's complexion deathly pale, his body trembling uncontrollably. Mingju, how are you? Mayan hugs his tottering body, no longer able to keep her voice calm. This is the first time that she feels so panicked when Diming-ju is by her side. Although she doesn't admit it verbally, in Mayan's eyes, Diming-ju is powerful and omnipotent. As long as he was by her side, she could put down all her defenses and rely on him with peace of mind. But at this very moment, Mu-yin knows. The man she loved was not omnipotent. He would also be injured, he would also be riddled with holes, and he would also die. The word death popped up in his mind. Mayan feels that she can hardly breathe, and hot tears can't stop falling from her eyes. Diming-ju grabs her hand, his eyes burning, his voice hoarse. If the person who hurt me was Xiaobao's biological father, which side would you stand on? Will you allow me to kill him? Mu-yin, who was originally crying, stares blankly, suspecting that she had misheard. However, the man looked in her eyes with a burning gaze, as well as the nervousness, apprehension, jealousy, and determination that could not be concealed no matter what, made Mu-yin realize that he was not joking. Diming-ju, what nonsense are you talking about? Chapter 3594. Mayan grits her teeth. Since you're standing here, you should be clear that I wasn't willing at that time. I hate that dog more than I hate that man. How could I protect him? Diming-ju, can't you trust me a little more? My love for you isn't any less than your love for me. Before Mayan could finish her words, she's already being embraced into an embrace filled with the smell of blood. Diming-ju's hands tightly clasps her, as if he wants to integrate her deeply into his own flesh and blood. At this moment, a warm and bright smile like that of a child blooms on that 10,000-year-old iceberg face. Even though the tip of his nose is filled with a pungent smell, the man's body is slightly trembling because of the pain. But Mayan still can't help but let out a long sigh, smiling as she returns his embrace. With Diming-ju here, she suddenly feels that the unbearable past is no longer unforgettable, painful, and humiliating. Diming-ju suddenly releases her at this time. He turns to look at Li Weiran, sneering, "Now you can go die." Crackle. As he speaks, the black sword that was originally floating softly in the air suddenly straightens. The sword emits a powerful pressure that makes the heaven and earth tremble. Li Weiran's complexion is as cold as frost, his eyes as dark as water, because he suddenly realizes Diming-ju wasn't forced into a desperate situation by him before. Everything was just a pretense by this man. His only purpose is to let Mayan see him hurt her with her own eyes. He wants Jun Mayan to personally say, "I can kill him." In this way, even if he really is Xiao Bao's biological father, being killed by Diming-ju under these circumstances, it's impossible for Mayan to hate him. This man is really worthy of being the son of Di Beixian and Bai Shenwei. Ruthless to others, ruthless enough to himself. In order to completely possess Mayan, he's even willing to risk his own life. The black sword in the air slashes down. Crackle and crackle as lightning strikes the valley floor. With a loud bang, a large hole is smashed open. Li Weiran barely dodges, but his blood still churns, and he spits out a mouthful of blood. The second sword comes like a shadow. This time, it's no longer lightning, but bone-chilling frost. The speed of each sword was so fast that it didn't give him any time to react. Li Weiran's mind raced as he looked at Mu-yin and shouted, "Jun Mu-yin, do you really want Diming-ju to kill me? Even if I'm Xiao Bao's biological father?" "What?" Mu-yin was shocked and looked at Li Weiran in disbelief. His heart skipped a beat when he saw the pair of icy blue eyes that were almost identical to Xiao Bao's. Li Weiran was Xiao Bao's biological father? The man I met in the cave was him? No, impossible. Boom. When the second sword landed, Li Weiran dashed forward. It's unknown when a cursed talisman appeared in his hand, and he slaps it on Diming-ju's body. Now that Diming-ju has the curse of 1,000 cuts on him, his body is so weak that even a child can be knocked down. Seeing Li Weiran's attack coming towards him, he had no way of dodging. But Mu-yin is by Diming-ju's side. The 7 subordinate swords were unsheathed, whistling through the air as they blocked Li Weiran's movements. On the floating island and the Xiozhen continent, Mu Yan's strength was naturally far from Li Weiron's. But this is the Yanwu continent. It's the home field of Mu Yan, who possesses internal force. Especially in the past few years, her internal force has become more and more mellow and powerful. It has long surpassed the pre-celestial stage. Chapter 3595. On this continent, even if Di Mingju doesn't use his divine power, he would only have a 50-50 chance of winning against her. Therefore, Li Weiron's attack is firmly blocked by her 7 absolute swords, unable to advance an inch. This pause also allows Di Mingju to control his natal sword to catch up to Li Weiran. Whoosh! The sword slashes down, but there is no intestines piercing, no head falling to the ground. But a layer of frost condenses from the soles of Li Weiron's feet, gradually spreading to the top of his head. When this frost completely covers Li Weiran, it will be the moment of his death. Li Weiron's hands are already frozen, so he simply gives up resisting. A careless smile hangs on his slightly pale lips. Mu Yan, do you really want Di Mingju to kill me? Di Mingju suddenly grabs Mu Yan's hand, tightly clenching it. A low, hoarse voice rings in Mu Yan's ears. Yin Yin, will you blame me for killing him? Mu Yan knits her brows tightly, remaining silent, because Qi Huang in the space is urgently telling her, if that bastardly Weiran is really Xiao Bao's biological father, you must not let Di Mingju kill him, otherwise Xiao Bao will be in danger. What do you mean? Mu Yan quickly asks with her divine sense. Qi Huang, let's not talk about the fact that the Li Fire bloodline needs the protection of the elders. There is still a solution. The most important thing is that Xiao Bao's immortal physique is still unstable, and he has a condition of blood empathy. Once the inheritor of the bloodline dies, Xiao Bao's immortal physique will also collapse. At that time, you won't even have a place to cry. Seeing that Mu Yan is silent for a long time, Di Mingju's heart sinks a little. There is only one voice echoing in his mind. She really can't bear to. In her heart, there is still this man. But the more it is like this, the more Di Mingju can't bear it. The more he wants Li Weiran to disappear from Mu Yan's sight forever. Mu Yan takes a deep breath and holds the man's hand. Di Mingju, can you not kill Li Weiran first? I want to confirm if he is Xiao Bao's biological father. And if it is confirmed? Di Mingju enunciates each word. If it is confirmed, will you let me kill him? Mayan shakes her head. He can't die for the time being, Xiao Bao. Di Mingju only feels a buzzing sound in his head. He almost couldn't hear the rest of Mayan's words. His body felt like it had been thrown into ice water. His limbs, bones, and even his heart felt cold and numb. Di Mingju, did you hear that? Li Weiran can't die yet. Hurry up and stop the frost. Di Mingju suddenly reaches out and clasps her waist, firmly pulling her into his embrace. His other hand was pressed against the back of her neck. His eyes were red as if he was possessed. Jun Mayan, tell me, do you really love me? Why are you still protecting this man when he wants to kill me? Will you do as he wishes and abandon me if he asks you to leave with him as Xiao Bao's biological father one day? Di Mingju suddenly lowers his head, seizing her lips. He bit down fiercely, as if he had gone mad. Mayan's body can't help but tremble from the pain. He desperately wants to retreat from Di Mingju, but because of her resistance, Di Mingju's actions become more and more vicious and ruthless. Hidden behind the viciousness and ruthlessness is the uneasiness, fear, and deep love that has been accumulated for a long time. Mayan's heart softens to an unspeakable degree, helpless and pitiful. This man, she doesn't know what he's imagining again. Chapter 3596. He didn't even listen to what people were saying. Mu Yan doesn't resist. Instead, she wraps her arms around Di Mingju's neck and gently responds. Their auras gradually harmonized. The ruthlessness and killing intent that pervaded the valley disappeared without a trace under the lingering affection. As her vision is blurred, Mayan can vaguely see that in the center of Ming Ju's forehead, there's a peculiar pattern that flashes and disappears. What is this? Why did she feel like she had seen it somewhere before? Just as he was thinking, the ground beneath his feet suddenly shook violently. The entire space in the valley began to distort. What's going on? Muyin promptly pushes Ming Ju away and looks around. There was a crackling sound in the air. The invisible barrier actually broke apart inch by inch. Then, these barriers formed a vortex and began to devour everything around them. Mu Yin had previously felt that the valley that she had mistakenly entered was not simple, and the man in the cave was even more so. Otherwise, she would have been able to find the entrance to the cave no matter how hard she tried. And Xiao Bao wouldn't have the extremely rare immortal physique in the world. But it's only now that she's experienced how strange a cave in the Yinwu continent can be. Because the cave had disappeared. After explaining the devouring of the vortex, the distortion of space, and the quaking of the earth, the cave had completely disappeared before their eyes, not even leaving a trace behind. The entrance of the cave had turned into a vast plain. What the hell is going on? As soon as Mu Yin asks, she feels a weight on her body. Ming Ju has already fainted on top of her. The frost that was about to freeze Li Weiron's entire body also stopped spreading, stopping at his neck. It was just that the frost was too strong. Even if Li Weiron's face wasn't covered in frost, it was still covered in a thick layer of white frost. Li Weiron had already fainted due to the low temperature of his body. Mayan lets out a long sigh and hangs Ming Ju's entire body on her body. She then grabs Li Weiron's collar and calls out to her omnipotent third brother. No one noticed that in Ming Ju's sleeve, a bamboo tube emitted a sizzling sound and fire-like runes appeared on it. Then it slowly dissipated. A crack visible to the naked eye appeared on the originally sealed bamboo tube. Continent of Cultivators, Liberty City. My lord, you're awake? Seeing Ming Ju open his eyes, Xing Lang simply wants to cry with joy. Elder Chong, quickly come over and look after Jun Shang. I'll go invite Miss June. As soon as Ming Ju opens his eyes, he sees Xing Lang's back disappearing at the door. He frowned and sat up with Elder Chang's help. Elder Chang's eyes were filled with worry. Lord, how are you feeling? Do your internal organs still hurt? The curse of 1,000 cuts in your body has been dispelled with the god water that Little Nine gave you. However, Little Nine is not proficient in using incantations after all, so I'm afraid that it hasn't been completely removed. Why don't I ask Third Young Master Chu to take a look at it for you? But Ming Ju doesn't answer. His gaze swept through every corner of the house, but he did not see any familiar figures. His heart sinks a little. What about Mayan? Elder Chong looked hesitant. He wanted to say something, but stopped himself. Ming Ju's hands suddenly clench into fists. Speak. Miss June. She is currently treating Li Weiran. Bang. Ming Ju abruptly stood up. He didn't even bother to put on his coat as he walked straight out. Chapter 3597. Jun Shang. Your injuries haven't healed yet. Elder Chong hurriedly chased after him. As he ran, he shouted anxiously, Jun Shang, there's something I must tell you first. However, Ming Ju's speed is too fast. Even if he was injured, Elder Chong would not be able to catch up to him. In the blink of an eye, he had already disappeared. Elder Chong let out a long sigh and glanced at the room where Xiao Bao was. He gritted his teeth and chased after Xiao Bao. In the torture room, Mu Yin stops playing the zither. The frost that froze Li Wei's internal organs was finally expelled by her. The injury caused by Ming Ju's natal sword. How could it be casually healed? At this time, Mayan only feels that the spiritual power in her body has been completely consumed. A thin layer of cold sweat appeared on his forehead. His hands and feet felt weak. She let out a long sigh of relief, then couldn't help but grit her teeth. Chi Huang, you better make sure that I didn't save them for nothing. Otherwise, I'll definitely let you enjoy the long-awaited itchy meat set meal. Mayan doesn't even have the time to watch over the injured and unconscious Diming Ju as she rushes over to treat Li Weiran. It was because Qi Huang said that Li Weiran might be dying soon. If he really was Xiaobao's biological father, he didn't save him directly. That would be equivalent to watching Xiaobao die. Although they had yet to confirm the relationship between Li Weiran and Xiaobao. Although the probability was only 1 in 1,000. But when it comes to Xiaobao's safety, Mayan doesn't dare to gamble at all. Qi Huang shuddered at first. Then he snorted coldly and said indifferently, "What does that have to do with me? I'm just telling you the truth. If you want to settle scores, you should look for Li Weiran." As he spoke, he said excitedly, "Didn't you say that if you saw that dog, you would castrate him more than a man? Anyway, castration won't affect Xiaobao. I think we can do it now." The corner of Mayan's mouth twitches, but she remembers what he did to Diming Ju. His peach blossom eyes couldn't help but be filled with coldness. He could escape death, but he couldn't escape punishment. She suddenly felt that Qi Huang's suggestion was pretty good. 7 Brilliants excitedly went to the space warehouse to find a suitable sharp dagger. Mu Yin frowned as she looked at the unconscious Li Weiran. She couldn't help but get closer. The vague silhouette he had seen in the cave years ago appeared in his mind. Indeed, his eyes were ice blue. However, he always felt that he wasn't the same person as Li Weiran. This part of her memory was very vague, as if it had been forcibly erased. But that feeling that couldn't be described with words wouldn't lie. Piak, a hand suddenly clasps Mayan's wrist, and she is suddenly pulled close to it. Li Weiran's hoarse voice rang in her ear. "You're so close. Are you trying to sneak an attack on me?" The girl bent down, her long hair hanging down, her eyebrows as beautiful as a painting. The smiling young man's eyes were as gentle as water. Their bodies were so close that it seemed like they would hug each other in the next moment. This is what Diming Ju sees when he enters the room. He clenched his fists so tightly that his fingernails dug deep into his palms. He didn't even feel it when his fingernails pierced his flesh. The uneasiness, fear, and jealousy that had been slightly appeased by Mayan. At this moment, it was like a prairie fire burning every inch of his flesh and blood. It made him want to destroy everything around him. Mu Yin was his. No one could take it away. So what if he was Xiaobao's biological father? So what if Mayan still had feelings for him? Chapter 3598. He clearly knows that this idea is vicious and cruel, but Diming Ju is unable to restrain the growth of malice at the bottom of his heart. The black seal on his forehead was faintly discernible. It was as if it was absorbing his surging negative emotions. However, at this moment, a pa sound came from his sleeve. Diming Ju absent-mindedly lowers his head, taking something out of his sleeve. It was a bamboo tube that had been split in half. A piece of paper fell out. The paper was rolled into a cylinder. Under the control of Diming Ju's spiritual awareness, the paper slowly unfolds, revealing the words belonging to defeating armies. "Lord, please take note. This subordinate is going to the Yinwu continent to investigate some matters. This trip may be fraught with death and danger. That was why he left the seal of the Dhamma as a precaution. This subordinate is investigating only one matter. 10 years ago, Jun Shang was seriously injured and went into seclusion. He was transported to a cave in the Yinwu continent, unable to escape for several years. After returning to the polar domain, Jun Shang lost all of his memories. He didn't even know that he had been to the Yinwu continent. He even got to know a woman there, and the two of them stayed alone in the cave for several days. This subordinate suspects that the woman is Miss Jun Mayan, and Miss Jun's only son, Jun Machin, is Jun Shang's biological son. If this subordinate is unable to return safely, this letter will be delivered to Jun Shang to assist you in investigating the truth of that year. But Jun respectfully. Diming Ju stares blankly at the paper in his hand, his entire person dumbfounded. All the blood in his body suddenly rushed to his head at this moment, exploding and buzzing in his ears. The words on the paper also became blurred. It was as if countless brilliant fireworks were blooming in front of him. Defeating armies, what is he saying? He had been to the Yinwu continent? Xiaobao is his biological son? Is this true? Di Mingju's hand, holding the paper, can't help but tremble. He did not dare to believe defeating armies' message. But the heart in his chest was beating wildly because of jealousy, desire, and shock. He recalled everything that had happened in the valley. That familiar feeling. There was also the shadow of the girl that appeared intermittently in his memories. Could it be that everything was real? Xiaobao is his son? He, Di Mingju, and Jun Mian's biological son? Di Mingju. Di Mingju. The anxious voice calls back Di Mingju's scattered emotions. He abruptly came back to his senses and looked at the peerlessly beautiful face right in front of him. His heart pounded wildly again. Mu Yin, a dry voice spits out from between his lips and teeth. For the first time, Jun Shangdaran, who has always been confident and aloof, feels helpless and nervous. He opened his mouth to ask something, but no words came out. Mu Yin sighs, reaches out to pinch his face, and says helplessly, "Jealous again. I already said that I won't let you kill Li Weiran, not because he might be Lil Bao's biological father, but because Lil Bao's biological father cannot die. Otherwise, he will be in danger." Di Mingju, what danger? He kept repeating the same words in his mind. Li Weiran is just a liar. He is not Xiaobao's biological father. I am. Mu Yin tells him about the mythic fire bloodline and Xiaobao's high fever and coma because of the bloodline empathy. Di Mingju asks how long Xiaobao has been unconscious, and he only feels mixed feelings in his heart. It was hard to tell if he was more ecstatic or guilty. At this very moment, Di Mingju is even more certain that Xiaobao is his son, his and Mu Yan's son. There were obviously so many signs before. Why didn't he notice anything at all? Chapter 35:99. Mu Yan sees that Di Mingju is in a trance, like a fool. He felt that she might still mind. Therefore, he decided to end the battle quickly. Mu Yan walked towards Li Weiran and raised her left hand. A piece of red jade fell from his hand, waving in front of Li Weiran's eyes. Standing not too far away, Di Mingju's pupils abruptly shrink. He almost couldn't help but cry out. Wasn't this the vermilion jade that he always wore? It's just that when she made a bet with Xiaobao in the Yinwu continent, she saw that Xiaobao really longed for this vermilion jade, so she gave it to him. Why is this vermilion jade in Mu Yan's hands? Mu Yan did not notice the change in Di Mingju's expression. She looked down at Li Weiran and coldly asked, "Do you recognize this piece of jade?" Li Weiran blinked. "Monster Core Blood Jade? How did you get this thing? Could it be that Mu Yan is related to the demon race?" Mu Yan couldn't help but sneer. "Li Weiran, you don't recognize this piece of jade, and you have the nerve to pretend to be Xiaobao's biological father? Do you believe that I won't chop you up and feed you to the dogs right now?" Li Weiran blinked innocently. "I don't know what you're talking about." Bang! Mu Yan punches him in the head. The originally incomparably handsome youth's left eye immediately had a bruise, making him look particularly funny. Not only was Li Weiran not angry after being hit, he even laughed softly. That smile was even happier than when he was about to succeed in his scheme against Di Mingju. "I didn't see it clearly just now. Why don't you bring the jade closer, so I could take a look again?" Mayan expressionlessly looks at the man whose skin is as thick as a city wall. The corner of her mouth slowly hooks up into a sinister and callous curve. "Do you really want to pretend to be Xiaobao's biological father?" Li Weiran glanced at Di Mingju, the smile on his face becoming even more radiant. "How can you say it's an impersonation? I've always been one." Mu Yin sneered. "Then do you know what I wanted to do the first time I saw Xiaobao's biological father?" Li Weiran's clear blue glass-like eyes revealed some curiosity. "What do you want to do?" Mu Yin flips her wrist, and a dagger flickering with cold light appears in her hand. Seven Brilliants had just found the dagger. Because of the Spirit Darren's misophobia, there is very little junk in the Tian and Mochin space. The dagger's attributes were quite good, so Seven Brilliants had reluctantly kept it. Now it finally came in handy. Mu Yin laid the dagger horizontally, expressionlessly pointing it at a certain spot on Li Weiron's body. Slowly, she said, "Of course, castrate him." The atmosphere in the room instantly became eerily silent. Muyin doesn't notice that Diming Ju, who is behind her, is quivering all over. His gaze then landed on her, his gaze gentle and helpless. Li Weiran, on the other hand, couldn't help but laugh out loud. "Ju Mayan, why are you so interesting? I've never seen a girl like you in my life." The young man lying on the ice-cold iron bed was clearly in a sorry state, extremely weak, and his body was completely confined. But the smile on his face is bright and dazzling. A pair of ice-blue eyes quietly stare at Mayan, as if he's staring at the whole world. "Ju Mayan, I'll give you a piece of advice. Marrying Diming Ju and becoming the holy empress of the polar domain will only smooth out your edges and corners and ruin your life. You will regret it in the future." Diming Ju's gaze darkens, and he's about to act. But Mu Yin is already one step ahead of him, once again punching out. This punch is condensed with spiritual power. Apart from smashing Li Weiron's right eye black, his whole body is also knocked unconscious. Chapter 3600. Don't look at how Li Weiran is lying on the bed, seemingly unrestrained. In fact, his Dantian spiritual veins have been completely bound by Mu Yan's Shen musician skill, prison drawing. Add to that the array in the prison, and Third Brother's dragon-trapping curse. Li Weiran's current strength is lower than a mortal's. Therefore, Mu Yan only used a little bit of strength to knock him out. The two of them leave the underground prison. Along the way, Diming Ju is in a trance, his gaze sweeping over the jade in Mu Yan's hand several times. Mu Yan thinks that he's still brooding over not killing Li Weiran, so she grabs his hand and puts the jade in his palm. "This jade was left to me by my biological father, Jun Shiyuan. But that year I met that cave and I lost this jade." As soon as the jade is in his hand, Diming Ju's body can't help but tremble slightly. Too familiar. He had worn this piece of jade close to his body for 5 or 6 years. He doesn't know where this jade came from, but when he woke up one day, the jade appeared by his side. The magic core jade seed will show its true nature in the hands of other people, but in other people's hands, it's just the most ordinary and unremarkable jade. As the emperor of the polar domain, Diming Ju has seen all kinds of treasures. Such an ordinary jade, logically speaking, should be thrown away without hesitation. But somehow, Diming Ju feels that this jade has an inseparable relationship with him. He kept this jade by his side, wearing it close to him for 5 or 6 years. Only now does he know that this jade was left behind by Mu Yan. That year in the nameless cave in the Yinwu continent, he and Mu Yan had skin to skin, and also Xiao Bao. There has never been another man, no biological father of Xiao Bao, whom Mu Yan deeply loved. From the beginning to the end, it's always him. Mu Yan belongs to him alone, from the beginning to the end, only him alone. Diming Ju realizes this in hindsight. His heart is surging like a stormy sea. Ecstasy, happiness, and guilt fill his mind. Diming Ju, a clear and sweet voice with doubt and worry rings in his ears. Diming Ju suddenly reaches out and tightly hugs the girl in front of him. "Yin Yin, I'm sorry." The man's hoarse voice carried a lot of affection, a lot of guilt and regret. "I'm sorry, I forgot everything that happened. I'm sorry for letting you suffer so much alone all these years. I'm sorry. As her husband and Xiao Bao's father, I couldn't shelter you from the wind and rain." Mu Yin stares blankly for a moment. Then she inwardly curses, "Oh no." Diming Ju wouldn't really be angry, right? Otherwise, why would he say such nonsense to apologize to her? "Diming Ju, listen to me. I really don't like Xiao Bao's biological father. No, not to mention liking him. I hate him more than enough. Back then, I was still a minor, yet he dared to lay his hands on a minor. If he wasn't a beast, then what was he?" "Do you think I would fall in love with a beast?" Diming Ju, his Adam's apple bobbed up and down as he let go of the person in his arms. He said with difficulty, "Actually, you don't have to hate him. Maybe he just couldn't control himself and like you too much. Mayan looks at him suspiciously. Chapter 36:01. Mayan puts on a straight face and coldly says, "That heartless and ungrateful beast doesn't have a fart of deep love. If he really liked her, how could he eat and wipe it clean, patting his butt and disappearing without a trace?" An arrow piercing through the heart. Deming Ju opens his mouth, but he can't say half a word. Mayan remembers the experience of her past life, and her face also turns cold. That person simply doesn't understand what kind of disaster he left behind for himself. Getting pregnant out of wedlock, suffering all kinds of rumors and slanders, these are nothing. But how many people would covet a small, defenseless, immortal spirit body? And the ending of her past life also proves this point. Xiao Bao wasn't even born, yet he was cut out of her abdomen and refined into an elixir. So, how could she not hate him? Everything that happened in that cave back then had too many accidents arising from a combination of factors. And then there's the fuzzy memory. Mayan doesn't resent her own experience. But what about Xiao Bao? Why was he so irresponsibly brought into the world, and then abandoned like a pair of worn-out shoes, suffering all those sufferings? Mayan reaches out to hug Di Mingju and snuggles her whole body into his embrace. Yin Yu, I don't want to mention this person again. Let's never mention him again, okay? Di Mingju's heart feels like it's been tossed in a pan of oil over and over again. He wants to tell the truth, but seeing the pain and indifference in Mayan's eyes, he swallows back the words that are on the tip of his tongue. Okay. He hears himself respond in a hoarse voice, if this is what Yin Yin wants. Jun Shang, so you're here. Elder Chang, who had just turned around, sees the two embracing in the courtyard. He immediately runs over happily, not even bothering to spoil the scene and disturb the lovey-dovey couple. Jun Shang, this subordinate has something to report to you. Elder Chang excitedly says, Little Master, he awakened the Leaf Fire bloodline. Di Mingju stares blankly. Leaf Fire bloodline? His mind suddenly remembers the Leaf Fire Day mark that appeared on his forehead at that time. Elder Chang once said that it was a direct descendant of the polar domain who had awakened the Leaf Fire bloodline. At that time, how could Di Mingju have thought that the one who awakened the Leaf Fire bloodline was unexpectedly Xiao Bao? Is Di Mingju's son? Elder Chang sees that Di Mingju's entire body is in a daze. He anxiously says again, Di Jun, that's the Leaf Fire bloodline, Just like you, Di Mingju's heart suddenly jumps, and he hurriedly interrupts him. Ben Jun will go see Xiao Bao. Mayan asks doubtfully, the same as Di Mingju? Di Mingju also has the Leaf Fire bloodline? Elder Chang said, of course. The Leaf Fire bloodline is... Jun Shangdaren's heart is flustered. His face was still taut as he pretended to inadvertently interrupt Elder Chang's words. Even in the Xiaoxian continent, the Leaf Fire bloodline is an extremely rare bloodline that can be inherited. The polar domain is one of them. Xiao Bao has awakened his Leaf Fire bloodline. I'll watch over him. He'll be fine. Hearing this, Mu Yin is simply overjoyed. As for whether it could protect the awakening of the Leaf Fire bloodline from different bloodlines, Mu Yin subconsciously ignores it. After all, the ancient book was vague and it was quite old. It's normal for the description to be incomplete. Since Di Mingju said that he can protect Xiao Bao, then he can certainly protect him. Elder Chang, on the other hand, is completely stupefied. What's going on? What does he mean by the Leaf Fire bloodline is an extremely rare bloodline that could be inherited even in the Xiaoxian continent? What does he mean by the polar domain is one of them? Chapter 36:02. The Leaf Fire bloodline was clearly the sole inheritance of the Mo clan's direct line of descent. There was no other, all right? However, just as Elder Chang was about to speak, he received a warning look from the Emperor and immediately shut his mouth obediently. He couldn't help but mutter in his mind, what's going on with Jun Shang? After going to the Yinwu continent, has his brain been beaten to a pulp? Di Mingju, accompany Xiao Bao. I'm going to refine some elixirs for you and Starwolf to heal. Mu Yin touched Xiao Bao's face and saw that his brows were tightly knitted. His little face revealed a pained expression, and his eyes were filled with heartache and worry. But she can't help with the Leaf Fire bloodlines awakening. Rather than staying here, it's better to ask third brother for advice on how to completely remove the remaining curse from Di Mingju's body. Moreover, Xiao Bao was still thinking about his father before he fell asleep. If he could open his eyes and see Di Mingju by his side, he would definitely be happy. Di Mingmo nodded and sat on the edge of the bed. Only when Mayan's figure disappears outside the door does his eyes dare to reveal his bitterly suppressed emotions. She held the boy's small, warm hand in her palm. For a moment, Di Mingju's mood is in turmoil. The voice that comes out of his mouth is almost hoarse and broken. Xiao Bao, Daddy has come to see you. I'm sorry. It was Daddy's fault. I didn't take good care of you and Mommy. His child, the future successor of the polar domain. He was supposed to be high and mighty, living a luxurious life and enjoying limitless glory. But because of his forgetfulness and stupidity, he actually wandered about in this desolate world for so many years. Because he didn't have a father, he was mocked and looked down upon. And all of this is what he owes Xiao Bao, what he owes Mayan. As if she had heard his call, Xiao Bao's long eyelashes fluttered, and she opened her eyes. Seeing Di Mingju sitting on the edge of the bed and holding his hand, Xiao Bao looks absent-minded. He softly calls out, Daddy. Di Mingju's throat is choked with emotion, almost unable to control his emotions. Father is here. Xiao Bao blinked, and his eyes gradually became clear. He realized that he wasn't dreaming. He was really seeing his father. In an instant, an inexplicable sense of grievance and sadness welled up in his heart. Her long eyelashes fluttered like butterfly wings, and bean-sized crystal tears rolled down from under her butterfly wings. Xiao Bao choked and said, Daddy, I thought you didn't want Xiao Bao anymore. For a moment, Di Mingju feels so distressed that he almost can't breathe. He clumsily stretched out his hand and gently wiped away the tears on his little face. With a gentle voice that he had never used before, he said, How could Daddy not want Xiao Bao? But Lil Bao is sick. He feels terrible. Father came and then left. He didn't even take a look at Xiao Bao. As Xiao Bao spoke, he felt more and more wronged, and tears streamed down his face. Her small body was also trembling slightly because of her sobs. Because Xiao Bao isn't Daddy's biological son, Daddy despises Xiao Bao? Don't you want Xiao Bao anymore? No, you are my son. You are my Di Mingju's only flesh and blood. Di Mingju cries out in his heart, but all the words are stuck in his throat. He felt his eyes getting a little wet. He had to suppress his surging emotions with great difficulty. He reaches out and picks up the boy on the bed, letting him lie in his arms. With the other hand, he gently wipes away the tears on the boy's face. In a hoarse voice, he said, In Daddy's heart, you will always be my most important child, Daddy's most precious flesh and blood. Daddy can abandon everything in the world, but I will never abandon Xiao Bao and Yanqing. Chapter 36:03. His long eyelashes flutter gently. Because those big eyes have been washed by water, they appear even more translucent and bright, like the most beautiful gems in the world. Di Mingju continues, Daddy didn't come to see Xiao Bao before, it was Daddy's fault. Xiao Bao, forgive Daddy, okay? Xiao Bao grabs Di Mingju's lapel, somewhat bashfully burying his whole face in Di Mingju's arms. His muffled voice comes with some excitement. Xiao Bao doesn't blame Daddy. Yanqing said for Xiao Bao to believe in Daddy, and Xiao Bao has always believed. In Xiao Bao's mind, Daddy is also the best daddy in the world, Xiao Bao's only daddy. Di Mingju abruptly tightens his grip, tightly hugging the little person in his arms. He can no longer hold back the moisture in his eyes, almost blurring his vision. Xiao Bao, Daddy will give the best of everything in the world to you and your Yanqing. I hope you can forgive me for the mistakes I've made. After speaking for a while, Xiao Bao feels weak all over. He softly calls out Daddy, grabs Di Mingju's lapel, closes his eyes, and falls back into a deep sleep. The strange thing is that this time, he doesn't feel the same pain as before. Even in his sleep, he feels as if he's being roasted over a fire. This time, the temperature around him is still warm, but not scalding. It's like all the pain, the heat, and the torment are blocked outside by a powerful umbrella. Xiao Bao knows that this is his daddy. So powerful, so perfect, so supreme. But he always gently shelters him and his Nyangqin from the wind and rain. He also says that he is his most important child, just like his own flesh and blood. His daddy is the best daddy in the world. In his sleep, the boy's mouth gently curls up, the wrinkles on his brows unfold, clearly having a sweet dream. The tall and handsome man's movements are clumsy, but careful as he holds the boy, like he's holding a treasure that has been lost and regained. Elder Chong, who has just entered the door, sees such a scene, and his whole person stares blankly. This is really too much like a real father and son. In fact, Diming Ju and Xiao Bao have always been very much like biological father and son. Diming Ju, who has always been cold and aloof, speaks bluntly to both women and children. In other words, due to his experiences since young, their emperor had always been unapproachable. However, it was one thing for such an emperor to show gentleness to Miss June. Even the children that Miss June had with another man were shown to be extremely patient and doted on. In fact, he didn't even hesitate to designate him as the successor of the polar domain. Back then, Elder Chong had found it unbelievable. He could only attribute it to the indescribable fate between people. But now that he thought about it, perhaps it wasn't fate at first sight. Instead, it was the fetters of blood. Could there really be such a miraculous coincidence? Elder Chong swallowed his saliva and asked in a low voice, "My lord, why did you lie to Miss June?" The Li Fire bloodline is... Diming Ju glances at him and fishes out the paper that Pejun left behind from his bosom, handing it to him. Elder Chong took a look at it, and his eyes widened. He was so shocked that he almost jumped up from the ground. "My lord, TT, this is what Pejun said true?" Diming Ju makes a shushing gesture, coldly shooting him a look. Elder Chong immediately covers his mouth and cautiously glances at the sleeping Xiao Bao. Seeing that he didn't wake up the little master, he lets out a long sigh of relief. At this moment, Elder Chang's brain is also a lump of paste. Chapter 3604. Although he has already been warned by Diming Ju, he still can't suppress his excitement. He keeps pacing back and forth in the room. He mutters excitedly, "My polar domain has a true heir. Jun Shang is amazing. I'm going to be a grandfather." Haha. Diming Ju looks at his silly appearance. He disdains it at first, but then unconsciously curls up the corners of his lips. In fact, even if Xiao Bao isn't his biological son, he would still pass on the polar domain to him, and would also treat him like his own flesh and blood. But that kind of feeling is different. The fetters of blood are magical and wonderful. From now on, he doesn't have to worry about someone standing between him, Xiao Bao and Mu Yin, and snatching them away. Diming Ju has never cared about Mu Yan's past. He has set his mind on this woman, and he will love her without hesitation for all eternity. Loveliness is a kind of one-for-one feeling. As long as you love deeply, there will inevitably be possessiveness, jealousy, worry about personal gains and losses, restlessness. Now that he knows that Mu Yin belongs to him alone from beginning to end, and that Xiao Bao is the crystallization of their love, all the jealousy and uneasiness have vanished into thin air. How can he not be ecstatic? However, after a moment of ecstasy, remembering Mu Yan's resentment towards Xiao Bao's biological father, Diming Ju's heart sinks. He told Elder Chong everything that had happened in the past few days. Elder Chong is simply dumbstruck, and only after a long while does he say, So Jun Shang, you really laid your hands on the underage Miss June? Most importantly, after you laid your hands on her, you still abandoned her?" Diming Ju's face darkens. Ben Jun doesn't remember. Scumbag. Too scumbag. Elder Chong shakes his head and criticizes, "It's no wonder that Miss June hates you to the bone." Saying that, he also looks Di Ming Ju up and down. "June Shang, don't tell me that you also have your father's dissolute nature. Get lost." Elder Chong avoids Di Ming Ju's murderous gaze and coughs lightly. "But this matter can't be hidden forever, right? What if Miss June gets angrier the longer we hide it?" Di Ming Ju frowns, then coldly says, "Ben Jun will find an opportunity to tell Mu Yin about this matter. None of you are allowed to divulge it, especially information related to the Li Fire bloodline. Do you understand?" "Yes, my lord." When it comes to business, Elder Chang's attitude towards Di Ming Ju immediately becomes respectful. "My lord, defeating armies' old woman seal has been triggered. Does that mean that he has fallen into a desperate situation?" At the mention of defeating armies, Di Ming Ju's expression also turns grave. Pujuin's soul lamp hasn't been extinguished, which means that he's still alive. But the soul lamp is getting weaker and weaker. He lowers his head to look at Xiao Bao. Once Xiao Bao has endured the awakening of his Li Fire bloodline, Ben Jun will go to the Yinwu continent to investigate. Old Man Chong nodded. Then this old man will stay on the floating island to look after Miss Jun and the young master. 2 days later, Xiao Bao completely endured the awakening of his Li Fire bloodline and became lively again. And his strength had also increased by leaps and bounds. Originally, he was the same as Luo Yu at the beginning of the Earth Expansion Realm, but now he had leaped to the 6th level of the Earth Expansion Realm, which made Luo Yu extremely depressed. In the entire Xiaoyao sect, except for Yun Ruhan and Chu Moli who were taken away by Yi Chengfeng, the others had reached the peak of the Earth Creation Realm. He was the only one who was still in the initial stages of the Earth Creation Realm, which was a serious hindrance to the Xiaoyao sect. Chapter 3605. That's why Luo, you have been practicing hard these days, completely unlike before when he would always find a chance to slack off. But he didn't expect that he wouldn't be able to advance a level even after practicing day and night. After sleeping for 3 days, Xiaobao directly jumped to the 6th level of the Earth Opening Realm, making him the bottom of the Xiaoyao sect. He couldn't even compare to his little martial nephew who was 6 or 7 years old. Seeing Luo Yu hiding in the corner and planting mushrooms, everyone couldn't help but laugh. Xiaobao walked up like a little adult and touched Luo Yu's head, comforting her coldly. "7th martial uncle, don't be sad. You're already very powerful." "Oh," Luo Yu looked at Xiaobao with tears in her eyes. Sure enough, his precious martial nephew was the most obedient and considerate, unlike the others who only knew how to gloat from the sidelines. Who knew that Xiaobao's next words would be, "Worst comes to worst, after Nyangqin and the other martial uncles ascend to the Xiuxian continent, we'll come back to visit 7th martial uncle." "Ow, ow!" Luo Yu angrily grabbed Xiaobao into her arms and pinched his tender little face with all her might. "Xiaobao, you've changed. You've been infected by your mother and have become so black-bellied. You're not cute at all." Xiaobao escaped from Luo Yu's grasp and threw himself into Mu Yan's arms, making a face at Luo Yu. Then he raised his small, tender thumb and slowly turned it back, making a "you're too weak" gesture. This was given to him by the felling evil sect. Luo Yu had no love in life. Everyone burst into laughter. Mu Yan touched Xiaobao's head, her eyes full of gratification. She thought of Xiaobao who had just come out of the mountains. He was still so cold and distant, completely unlike a child of his age. But now that Xiaobao was growing up because he was surrounded by love and warmth, plus Di Ming Ju made up for his father's shortcomings, he was slowly showing his childish side. Mu Yan's heart was full of gratification and pity. Her greatest wish in this life was to make Xiaobao happy, and then accompany him as he slowly grew up and became an indomitable spirit. Now, this wish was being realized step by step. The people around her were also becoming more and more happy and perfect. Her wish was fulfilled in this life. Luo Yu glared at Xiaobao, whose face was taut, but he was still gesturing with his thumb down. She was so angry that her teeth itched. He rolled up his sleeves and said, "Let's go." If you have the ability, let's fight on the training field. See if I don't beat you until you kneel down and beg martial uncle for mercy." Xiao Bao's face was expressionless as he said in his childish voice, "We can compete, but seventh martial uncle can't cry when you lose." "Why would I cry?" Luo Yu was so angry that she turned into a pufferfish. He gritted his teeth and said, "Humph, let's see who will cry first." Although he said that, he still glared at Mu Yin and the others. "You are not allowed to come over to watch the battle, to prevent you from secretly helping Xiao Bao." Xiao Bao also nodded. Seventh martial uncle also wants his face. Even if he cries, he can't let others see it. "Hey, my bad temper." Luo Yu grabbed Xiao Bao's collar and carried him in her arms, heading towards the martial arts arena. "Ha ha!" There was a roar of laughter in the courtyard. Even Mu Yin couldn't help but shake her head. But soon, they couldn't laugh anymore. Boom! A loud noise came from the direction of the martial arts arena. Then, innumerable black gas, as thick as ink, surged into the air and filled more than half of Liberty City. What happened? What is that black gas? Chapter 3606. Mu Yan's expression changed. Without thinking, he flew towards the martial arts practice field. Others might not know what the black energy was, but she knew. That was Li Weiran. How could this be? Li Weiran should have been trapped, and his ability to act was completely restricted. And the outermost restriction was personally reinforced by Deming Ju. Mu Yin didn't kill him mainly because the jade appeared in Liberty City for no reason and was picked up by the Golden Crow fire essence. And this period of time was also when Li Weiran entered and left Liberty City. That person back then might not be Li Weiran, but what followed would be related to Li Weiran. Mu Yin wanted to get information about the true owner of the jade from him, so that Xiao Bao could successfully survive the next two Li Fire bloodline awakenings. But Li Weiran was seriously injured this time. Apart from waking up once and being knocked unconscious by Mu Yin, he didn't wake up again. Plus, Deming Ju could protect Xiao Bao through the Li Fire bloodline awakening. So Mu Yin forgot about Li Weiran for a while, who knew that this pervert still had the ability to cause trouble. Mu Yin was someone who could reach the top of the fortune list. Although his speed wasn't as fast as Ling Yuxing, he was still very fast. In the blink of an eye, he had already arrived at the martial arts practice field. At this time, the martial arts practice field, which was originally paved with bluestone and set up with formations, was already broken beyond recognition. Luo Yu was clutching her chest, standing up from the ground with a pale face. Not far away, Elder Chong was also in a sorry state. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth, his eyes full of anxiety. Seeing Mu Yin coming over, Luo Yu showed a guilty expression and said hoarsely, "I'm sorry, sixth senior sister. It's all because I was stubborn and insisted on competing with Xiao Bao. That's why." Mu Yan's face darkened as she said coldly, "Is it Li Weiran?" Luo Yu nodded. Cough. He took Xiao Bao and flew up the Heaven's End cliff. Sixth senior sister, they must not have gone far. Let's go after them immediately. Maybe we can catch up. Mu Yin took out an elixir and stuffed it into Luo Yu's mouth. Her voice softened, but there was an undeniable determination. "This isn't your fault. I was careless. I didn't expect Li Weiran to be able to escape from the penalty prison, since he wants to capture Xiao Bao. Even without the competition between you and Xiao Bao, he would still be able to find an opportunity to hide in the shadows. You're injured, so it's better for you to recuperate here. Don't worry, I'll definitely bring Xiao Bao back." Luo Yu's nose twitched. She wanted to say something, but she nodded in the end. Elder Chong could not wait to catch up. "Miss June, let this old man go with you. If that bastard Li Weiran dares to harm little master, I will definitely tear him to pieces." Elder Chong was filled with regret and shame. He had clearly been guarding by the little master's side all along, but he had actually failed to do so. Li Weiran, who was already heavily injured, directly snatched her away. He really let down the little master, and even more let down Jun Shan's entrustment. Heaven's End cliff, inside a cave in the drunken evening forest. Little Bao pursed his lips tightly as he stared coldly and vigilantly at the white-clothed young man in front of him. The gears in his head spun quickly as he tried to figure out what his goal was and why he wanted to capture him. In the cave, the fire crackled as it burned. A plump, juicy hair was skewered on a stick over the fire and was being roasted continuously. There was a sizzling sound of oil. An enchanting fragrance permeated the entire cave. Gurgle. Little Bao suppressed the urge to swallow his saliva, but his little stomach rumbled uncontrollably. Chapter 36:07. Li Weiran glanced at him and smirked. He tore off a rabbit leg and wrapped it in a large leaf before handing it to him. Xiao Bao couldn't help but swallow his saliva. However, he said stubbornly, "Why did you capture me? Why did you injure 7th Martial Uncle and Grandpa Chong?" Li Weiran said nonchalantly, "I captured them if I wanted to and injured them if I wanted to. Do I need someone's approval?" Xiao Bao gritted his teeth and spat out 2 words, "Bastard." Li Weiran looked at his angry expression and couldn't help but laugh. "So, do you want to eat the meat roasted by the bastard?" Xiao Bao struggled internally for a moment, but he still took a bite with a cold expression. Delicious. It was comparable to 5th Martial Uncle's cooking. No wonder Huang Wang couldn't forget it. However, Daddy's cooking was still better. Oomph. After finishing the delicious, fat, and tender rabbit leg, Xiao Bao's stomach bulged, and he couldn't help but burp. Then, he couldn't help but glance at Li Weiran. The hand that had been corroded in order to save him had already recovered to its original state. Was it Yang Qin who helped him heal? Grandpa Chong told him that this person was a bastard who wanted to kill Daddy and hurt Mother. But why did this bastard have to save him time and time again? Even in the desert of the chaotic Heaven Cave abode, he was willing to sacrifice his life to save him. If that stinky toad's teeth were any closer, his hand wouldn't just be corroded, it would be bitten off. Xiao Bao's beautiful eyebrows furrowed like a little adult. He felt that he should hate this bastardly Weiran. Now that he was captured, he should fear and hate him even more. But he didn't seem to be afraid at all. Li Weiran turned back to look at him and said with a smile that wasn't a smile, "Even if you keep staring at me, I won't let you go." Oomph. Xiao Bao turned his head coldly, expressing his disdain. But after a while, he couldn't help but ask, "Why did you harm my father and mother?" Li Weiran used a branch to poke at the haystack, replying as if he was bored to death, "Children won't understand adult matters." Xiao Bao was so angry that she didn't want to talk to him again. Then, he heard Li Weiran's low and somewhat hazy voice. "Because his mother killed my mother and caused me to become like this. So, I wanted to lose everything as well. I want him to taste every bit of pain that I went through." Xiao Bao felt a little dizzy. It took him a while to understand that it was his father's mother who killed Li Weiran's mother, making him an orphan and suffering a lot. That was why Li Weiran, who had grown up, wanted to take revenge on his father. Xiao Bao thought about it in his own shoes. If someone killed his mother, he would be in so much pain that he would wish he was dead. She will restrain herself from tearing the person who harmed his mother into pieces. The cave quieted down. Li Weiran slowly chewed on the other rabbit leg. Seeing that the little guy's nose and eyes were cursed together and his little face was taut, Zhang Wuji's heart skipped a beat. That appearance that was 70% similar to Mu Yin revealed a bit of cuteness and elegance at this moment. He couldn't help but chuckle softly. "What? Don't you think I should take revenge on your father?" Xiao Bao pursed his lips and said after a long while, "I don't know. But it's useless even if you want to take revenge. In any case, you can't beat father." Li Weiran, "This little brat's eloquence has improved." Xiao Bao continued, "Father's mother did something wrong, but father didn't do anything wrong. Mother said that every grievance has its perpetrator, and every debt has its debtor. Father is also very innocent. Of course, you could take revenge on father, but I won't stand on your side." Chapter 36:08. Li Weiran almost burst out laughing. "Little fellow, do I need you to stand by my side?" Xiao Bao snorted and didn't say anything. Li Weiran lowered his eyelids slightly and said nonchalantly, I really can't beat your father, so I can only use you as a bargaining chip. Little fellow, if I use your life to threaten your father to hand over his own, do you think he will agree? Xiao Bao glared at him fiercely. Shameless bastard. Li Weiran smiled and didn't bother with him anymore. He got up and found a corner to lie down and close his eyes. The cave became extremely quiet. Only the crackling sound of the burning fire could be heard. Xiao Bao looked at the sleeping Li Weiran warily for a long time before he tiptoed over. Under the light of the fire, the youth's face was as pale as snow. Even his lips were colorless. He was clearly an adult, but he was lying on his side and curled up. His frail body trembled slightly. Blood had seeped through his clothes. On his spotless white robe, there were startling red marks painted on it. Xiao Bao's divine sense had already grabbed the Bixia sword in the air. But now, he hesitated and didn't pull out. Li Weiran, this big bad guy, shameless bastard. Why did he look so pitiful now? At this moment, Li Weiran's chapped lips opened and closed slightly, letting out a muffled sound. Xiao Bao couldn't hear it clearly and couldn't help but move closer. Then he heard a clear, yet sorrowful voice that belonged to a youth. Mother, I already have the ability to protect you. Why do you still want to abandon me? Let's not look for Dibei Xian, okay? Isn't it enough for us to depend on each other? Mother, I found the Dark Cloud Spirit Flower we can both cultivate. I don't need to rely on others to protect you. Why won't you turn around to look at me? You hate my eyes, so I'll dig them out, okay? Mother, can you turn around and look at me? Xiao Bao didn't really understand what Li Weiran was saying, but listening to this hoarse, broken, and almost desperate pleading voice, he felt a little sour in his heart. Li Weiran seemed really pitiful. His mother didn't like him. He didn't have a father to love him. For so many years, there was only one person. In comparison, Xiao Bao was much happier. His mother had always doted on him, and now Xiao Bao had a father. A family of 3 could be together forever. Xiao Bao sighed softly. She looked at Li Weiran with pity in her big eyes. He took out a porcelain bottle and placed it beside Li Weiran. Then, he quietly turned around and left. He wanted to help his father get rid of the potential danger. But seeing how pitiful he was, she decided to let it go. Moreover, he had saved her before. The small figure disappeared into the cave. Li Weiran, who should have been sleeping soundly, slowly opened his eyes. He curled his lips slightly, picked up the porcelain bottle beside him, opened it, and sniffed it. Then, he couldn't help but laugh softly. But in an instant, that smile was replaced by a cold, murderous aura. Li Fire Bloodline, land of the cursed god. So that was how it was. It turns out that the little guy really is Deming Ju's own flesh and blood. No wonder he has a pair of ice blue pupils that are almost exactly the same as hers and Deming Ju's. It's no wonder that Deming Ju, who previously hated her to the bone and shouted to beat and kill her, suddenly doesn't even bother to pay attention to her. Chapter 3609. It seems that Deming Ju already knows about the little guy's past. Therefore, this impostor was no longer a thorn in his side. Deming Ju, you must be ecstatic that you have regained what you lost, right? It doesn't matter. You could be a little happier. Because only when you are truly filled with hope, when you fall from high place, you will fall even more miserably. The pain will be even more heartbreaking. Watching your beloved flesh and blood die in front of you, without a corpse left. This kind of feeling of losing something that you have gained and then being consigned to eternal damnation. You must savor it. Suddenly, a pair of childish, clear, ice-blue eyes flash in Li Weiran's mind. The hand holding the porcelain bottle tightens. He murmurs, "Little guy, don't blame me. You can only blame yourself for being Deming Ju's son." His voice is calm and gentle, like a whisper. The expression on his face is as warm as usual, indifferent. But the hand holding the bottle, the veins on the back of his hand bulge, as if he wants to crush something. In this scene, even he himself did not notice. Nyang Qin, seeing Mayan hurriedly searching for her in the drunken evening forest. Xiao Bao screams and throws himself into her arms. Mayan hugs him tightly, inspecting him from head to toe to make sure that he is not injured. Only then does she let out a sigh of relief. Xiao Bao, what is going on? Where's Li Weiran? Xiao Bao recounts how he was caught by Li Weiran, how he was injured and fell unconscious, and how he ran out. Mayan's face is full of suspicion. Would Li Weiran be so careless? Impossible. That perverted caution, craftiness, and unfathomable treachery is something that Mayan has seen on the way from the gravel hill. She does not believe that the person that Li Weiran caught with great difficulty would let Xiao Bao escape just because he was injured and fell unconscious. Xiao Bao brings Mayan to the cave. What makes Mayan speechless is that she actually found the unconscious Li Weiran in the cave. She's not as polite as Xiao Bao. She directly kicks Li Weiran's abdomen, waking him up. Speak, we want. Looking at the sleepy youth looking at her with an innocent face, Mayan really wants to grab a stone and smash his face. Li Weiran's body was extremely weak. He leaned against the wall of the cave and said weakly, "It wasn't easy for me to escape, but I still feel angry. It didn't make sense for me to be locked up in a dark dungeon for a few days and nights, without even a single person to send me food. Therefore, when I saw the little fellow, I became bold and took him away to make you worry." Mu Yin sneers thrice. Damn pervert. Do you think that I will believe your lies that come out of your mouth? Li Weiran didn't seem to notice Mu Yan's expression as he continued, but I regret bringing the little fellow here. The little guy is Mayan's heart. You must be very sad that he's taken away. I have deep feelings for you. How could I bear to see Mayan sad? Thus, she simply pretended to be asleep and let him go. For the sake of my infatuation with you, Mu Yin, you definitely won't blame me, right? Mu Yin takes a deep breath. He repeated in his heart 3 times, "Don't bother with a lunatic." She took Xiao Bao's hand and turned around to leave. She doesn't even want to say half a word to him. "Jun Mayan, aren't you going to catch me and bring me back?" Li Weiran's voice comes from behind. Chapter 36:10. Mu Yin turns her head and sneers at him. Catch you? I don't think so highly of myself. You can come and go as you please in this heavily sealed prison. What would I catch you for? To let you kidnap my son again? Li Weiran can't help but laugh. This laugh pulls at his wounds, causing him to cough uncontrollably. Jun Mu Yin, how can you be so interesting? I've never liked a woman as much as I like you in my life. Mu Yin looks at him coldly, not saying a word, until Li Weiran withdraws his smile. She says faintly, "Li Weiran, do you really like me? Do you really have feelings for me between a man and a woman?" Li Weiran stares blankly, his brows subconsciously wrinkling. Mu Yin slowly says, "When I gave you the Dark Cloud Spirit Flower, I discovered that Li Weiran, you're a person who lacks emotions. You don't understand love, and you don't know how to love someone. The 7 emotions and 6 desires are just symbols in your eyes, and they can't reach your heart." Li Weiran looks at her coldly, his eyes without a trace of warmth. "Shut up." Mu Yin ignores him and continues. "You treat me and Xiao Bao very specially, saving our lives time and time again. You did all of this not to deliberately get close to us and use us as chess pieces to attack Deming Ju. It's also not because you really fell in love with me at first sight and wanted to be with me. It's because of a freak combination of factors. Because of the Dark Cloud Spirit Flower, you entrusted your mother's obsession, unwillingness, and feelings to me. You want me to accompany you so that you don't have to be alone anymore. But that's not love. It's not even possessiveness." Li Weiran's eyes are slowly dyed red. He slowly stands up from the ground, saying word by word, "I told you shut up, did you hear me?" Mu Yin sighs softly. "Li Weiran, I don't know about the grudges between you and the Polar Domain and Deming Ju, and I won't interfere. If the Polar Domain really owes you, you can rely on your own ability to get it back. But you have your hatred, and I have my obsession. As long as I'm still alive, I will never allow you to hurt my man and child. That's all I have to say. Take care of yourself." Li Weiran gritted his teeth and looked at Mu Yin, who was about to leave. He said hoarsely, "Jun Mu Yin, if you don't kill me today, you will regret it one day." Mu Yin smiled but didn't respond. She pulled Xiao Bao and left the cave without hesitation. There was a clear and melodious voice in the distance. No matter what, thank you for saving Xiao Bao so many times. Besides, Xiao Bao likes you so much. Why would I kill you and make him sad? Mother, I didn't. Okay, no problem. Bang! Li Weiren fell on his, but on the wet and cold ground. His lips were pale and his eyes were flickering. In the end, he closed his eyes and let out a desolate and hopeless laugh like a trapped beast. It had been 3 days since he returned from the drunken evening forest. Everything returned to normal. However, Little Treasure felt that there was something wrong with his body. In the dead of night, he woke up in the space. He sat up abruptly and covered his nose. 2 streams of blood flowed down from the tip of his nose. Drip! A drop fell on the fat rabbit's body, causing it to open its mung bean eyes in a daze. Its short tail was also swaying left and right. However, when it saw Little Bao's appearance clearly, its entire body suddenly shuddered, and it let out a sharp cry of rage and terror. Chapter 36:11. Young Master, you're bleeding. This shout woke up everyone inside and outside the space. Little Phoenix, the evil warding sword, and Huang Huang cried out anxiously as they scurried around. Qi Huang frowned and pulled Xiao Bao to the side. He sized him up from head to toe, and the suspicion in his eyes grew. Only the Golden Crow Fire Essence was watching the spectacle from the side. Serves you right. You guys bullied me back then, and now you're getting your retribution. Xiao Bao wiped the blood off his face and said softly, Elder Brother Qi Huang, don't worry. I'm fine, right? Maybe I've been cultivating too much recently, and I'm a little tired. Qi Huang instinctively replied in its Sundra manner, Who's worried about you? I just don't want to see you dirty my space. However, his brows furrowed even tighter. No matter how he looked at it, Xiao Bao didn't seem to be injured at all. There were no unusual energy fluctuations either. Everything was as usual, but this was exactly what was strange. This was the 3rd time Xiao Bao had a nosebleed. How could a person keep having nosebleeds for no reason? There must be something strange going on. Qi Huang said with a cold face, Brat, did you randomly eat something and get poisoned? Xiao Bao shook his head blankly. He couldn't help but think of the rabbit Li Weiren gave him in the cave 3 days ago. She clenched her fists tightly for a moment before quickly releasing them. Xiao Bao grabbed Qi Huang's hand tightly and stammered, Big Brother Qi Huang, can you not tell Mother that I have a nosebleed again? I don't want Mother to worry. Qi Huang raised his eyebrows and wanted to curse. Why should I help you keep it a secret? But when he met Xiao Bao's big, watery eyes, he swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. All right. I won't say anything if you don't want to. I'm not a blabbermouth. Humph. Wasn't because he was soft-hearted towards this little bastard that he agreed to it. Xiao Bao warned a few more of the little ones, and even threatened the Golden Crow Fire Essence for a while. Only then did he heave a sigh of relief. But when he lay down to sleep again, his small body still curled up uneasily. 2 days later, Zhou Zishuan ordered someone to deliver specially tailored winter clothes. Most of them were Little Treasure's clothes. It looked exquisite and cute, making Mayan simply unable to put it down. However, Little Treasure was a little absent-minded. The room was warm, and her face was flushed under the sunlight. She looked healthy and energetic. However, those originally sparkling and translucent ice blue eyes seemed to have lost their luster, becoming dim and silent. Xiao Bao, what's wrong? Are you not feeling well? Mu Yin finally discovers that there's something wrong with him. Xiao Bao forced a smile. Mother, I'm fine. It's just that there are too many clothes. I don't need them. Before he could finish his words, he felt something warm spurt from his nose. No, not only the nose, but also the eyes, mouth, and ears. In an instant, the blood in his body seemed to be rapidly drained. His body also became cold and stiff. Xiao Bao. Mayan is overwhelmed with shock as she hugs Xiao Bao, who is slowly collapsing. Xiao Bao, don't scare Nyangqin. Xiao Bao struggles to open his eyes and look at Mu Yan. His little hands use all the strength in his body to grab her clothes. "Nyangqin, am I going to die?" "You won't." Mu Yin says through gritted teeth, "Don't talk nonsense. Xiao Bao will live a long, happy, and healthy life. Nyangqin will absolutely not let you die." Xiao Bao's eyelids tremble, and he finally couldn't bear it anymore. He completely falls into a coma. Chapter 36:12. Xiao Bao's eyelids trembled, and he finally couldn't help but fall into a coma. His face, which was still red just a moment ago, is now as pale as rice paper. Qi Wang's incredulous voice comes to Mu Yan's ears. The immortal body has collapsed. How is this possible? He's not even 10 years old, and hasn't been infected by too much desolate air. How can the immortal body collapse so quickly? Xiaoyao City, in Chu Moli's room. Everyone from the Xiaoyao school is gathered at the side. Chu Moli retracts his divine sense from Xiao Bao's body and frowns slightly. Third senior brother, is Xiao Bao under a curse? Mu Yin holds back her thoughts that are on the verge of collapse and says each word with a trembling voice. Is this what Li Weiren meant when he said that if he doesn't kill him, he will regret it one day? The killing intent in Mu Yan's heart is rolling like a raging wave. If Li Weiren was in front of her right now, she would definitely not be able to stop herself from tearing him into pieces. Chu Moli gently shakes his head. "I can't be sure," meeting everyone's anxious and doubtful eyes. Chu Moli muttered to himself irresolutely for a moment, but still said, "There are many types of curses. There are those that can entangle a person's 3 souls and 7 spirits like maggots in the bones. And there are also those that will completely dissipate after achieving their goal, not leaving behind the slightest trace. Some are specially used to achieve a certain function, and some can be used repeatedly, and their effects are not much different from ordinary talismans and formations. There are many kinds of them, and those kinds of curse that disappear instantly. Once they are completely hidden, I can't detect them. And because I don't know what kind of curse it is, I can't think a way to deal with it. You can understand the forcible removal of curse as a method of fighting poison with poison. Only by clearly knowing the characteristics and purpose of the curse can one be able to deal with the problem. Otherwise, the effect of the curse will only be superimposed, and Xiao Bao will die even faster." Chu Moli's words make everyone's hearts sink little by little. Mu Yan's heart seems to be soaked in regret and hatred, being cut into pieces, unable to calm down. She clearly knows what kind of a sinister and vicious pervert Li Weiren is. She actually let down her guard. If something really happened to Xiao Bao, Mu Yin suddenly stands up and walks out. "Junior sister, where are you going?" Mu Yin closed her eyes and said slowly, "I will go find Li Weiren. Senior brothers, please help me look after Xiao Bao." "We'll go with you." "That's right, 6th senior sister. Let's go and force Li Weiren to tell us what curse he put on Lil Bao. At that time, 3rd senior brother will definitely be able to save Xiao Bao." Chu Moli knitted his brows, as if he wanted to say something. There were always some doubts in his heart, but he could not verify them. Chu Moli took another look at Xiao Bao on the bed, but didn't say anything in the end. However, just as Mu Yin is about to step out of the room, a familiar voice suddenly came from outside the house. "Mu Yin, are you looking for me?" Li Weiren. Mu Yin kicks the door open. Chiju's sword was unsheathed and pressed against Li Weiren's throat. "What did you do to Xiao Bao?" Li Weiren's face was still pale. However, the smile on his face was as bright as the spring scenery. His voice was frivolous and melodious, making people want to chop him into mincemeat. "Didn't 3rd young master Chu say it already? I put an instant elimination curse on a little guy. I counted with my fingers, and the time for the curse to take effect should be almost here. So I came to take a look." Mu Yan's eyes suddenly flashed with a strong, killing intent. The Chiju's sword in her hand fiercely stabbed towards Li Weiren's chest. "You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.